Coming up on this episode of Hacking Astrology.
Because it was like my only time I knew I was about to be canceled. You're about to be trolled mercilessly. Can't say that word. I was like, yeah, okay. I lost like 1,000 subscribers even. You guys are over the drama, but it's not drama to me. It's my life. And y'all took it from me. You took me like life from me. I cannot believe that it is 2005 and I'm having an old woman tell me I'm a slut. I walked up to her because I was like, no, I said, Jenna, you need to talk to me about this. You need to take that blog down. At the end of my 12th house perfection, I told him I wanted to be separated. Did you talk to your higher self on a pendulum or whatever? And I was like, no, but I want to. I get out of work and he's calling my phone. And he goes, Alyssa, I need you to come here back to the house. And I was like, why? And he's like, because I am in the front yard. It's snowing. I have no clothes on. I'm in my underwear and the house is on fire. I had 1 month of like, I was doing readings in the hotel. Sometimes we want to get readings, so we'd have to check out and wait.
Oh my God.
And I was on crutches.
That is wild.
We had no car. Yeah, it was crazy. And I've gone through so many friends and not on my own desire to go through friends. Right? I left my church. None of them talked to me anymore. And all of a sudden I had no more friends. So I had to make new friends at like a restaurant job. I started to look into my relationship with my mom, the oldest daughter syndrome, like this line of passing on youth to another female, like who will then pass on. Carl Lentz he got fired from Hillsong. He might be more of a creeper. I don't know.
I have his phone number.
You have Carl Lentz's phone number?
Yeah, I do. Hey, Alyssa.
Hi, Sean. I'm so excited to be here today.
Welcome to the Hacking Astrology podcast. This podcast, I think, needs your energy. It needs your perspective. And I think it's just the perfect contrast, I think, to, dig into some stuff.
I'm like super excited and so honored that you had me on. I mean, we talked about this, me coming on your podcast like a couple of weeks ago, and I've been looking forward to it. So this is going to be really exciting. Oh, this is a beautiful thing is that your moon is 9 degrees Taurus on your south node, which is 9 degrees Taurus, and my north node is 9 degrees Taurus.
Yeah.
And my moon is also Taurus, but it's 22 degrees. But that 9-degree Taurus shit right there, it's a real big deal. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at your rose line astrology and I was like, my Taurus moon is, I think, the dream or something like that.
Oh, yeah. And the feminine side.
The feminine side.
Yeah. Feminine side is the dream. So then in the masculine side, it's the undiscovered.
Yeah.
Nope, not the undiscovered. You're the Kylo Ren one. Oh my God. I needed to like get up on my own thing that I created.
No, you're good.
There's 36 personality types. So in Orion, it is undiscovered, icon, and the legacy. You're the legacy.
Okay.
Which it's pretty cool because the legacy in Roseline, under the masculine side, and we can go between the masculine and the feminine sides as well. So I can explain both those, but the legacy version for you is like picking up the energy of where people came before and expanding on it. And I named it after Kylo Ren, and very particularly because I felt like watching that was where it hit. And I think that Adam Driver is a legacy too, which is why I felt like it fit. So it's very much like understanding what came before you, breaking it all down, seeing the good and the evil to it, and then choosing a side and which way you want to take it. And that's kind of what your Hacking Astrology podcast is doing. Yeah. It's very, very legacy. The feminine side of you then being the dream, that is the more dreamy, like emotional side. It's very much the dream. It's very in the 12th house of when you put it over the astrology chart. So it's about drifting off. Actually, a lot of people who are dreams, they love to get high. Because you're like trying to gain your inspiration through the the Pisces energy, where
Yeah.
the legacy is more into the it's actually in the third house overlay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so
So
interesting. Definitely, I'm such a reformer. I want to reform the world. I want to rewrite the world because I feel like the
I
world
can
deserves so much more.
it does, doesn't it? That's I love that. That must be 9 degrees Taurus energy for
Yeah,
you.
literally, literally. Um,
Because it's like the 9 is that first initial ending, like the 9, it's a true 9, so it's like this is we're going back to the beginning, but we're also at the end. And then Taurus is about that stability. So in a way, 9 Taurus is a little like Uranian
yeah.
because it's like we're going to start this over, like Wheel of Fortune kind of energy within the Taurus construct of stability, money. Like this is where we lay our head,
Mm,
the feminine energy, because Taurus is Eve.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's what we're doing. Because I really care about that shit too. It just feels like my destiny.
Yeah,
Fuck, North
absolutely.
Node and Taurus.
Yes. So, happy Mother's Day. I said
Thank
happy
you.
Mother's Day to you.
Oh, you did on did
Oh
you?
wait,
Oh, well,
no, it
thank
was
you.
a day late. It was a day late. I said happy Mother's Day to you a day late, but happy Mother's
Oh,
Day.
thank
What
you.
did you do for Mother's Day?
Oh, I hung out with my kids for a little bit. They made me cards. I looked at a bunch of like pictures and videos of them and showed them to their dismay. They like they're like at that age where they like are half interested in who they are as babies, but they like don't recognize themselves in
Mhm.
that, and it's embarrassing to them a little bit.
Okay.
They're 6 and 8, but I was really hardcore reminiscing, and I know it's because we're in Mercury's shadows.
Yeah. So you have
um,
how many kids do you have?
I have
Yeah.
2 kids. I do have a stepdaughter, but I haven't talked to her in a very long time.
Okay.
Um, but she was my first child because I met her when she was about 9.
Okay.
So it was 11 years ago that I met
Okay.
her, which is
All
interesting.
right.
So I was her stepmother for a while
Okay.
until my Saturn return, and then things got weird
Uh-huh. Okay.
with that.
And then when did you have your first child?
2013,
2013.
and then that was my Saturn return actually. And then I had my second child in 2015, which was still my Saturn return. So they both have my same Saturn, which is karmically
I love
exciting.
that. I love that. Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, I see you talk about your family all the time on your Instagram story, and your children, and yeah, I just think that it's just really interesting to see how you express on your Instagram story because I try so hard to talk about myself and my life, like on my Instagram story, and I just like can't. Which I feel like is part of my shtick, which is like the mysterious person that we never get to know about, but
Yeah.
pops in here and
Well,
there.
it's a move.
It's a
It's a move.
vibe.
It's a vibe. It's like the one of the big things kind of doing it because I've been doing it for 10 years. And even when I quit astrology, I only actually quit public image energy, um, for 3 months. I like, there was a month that I actually wiped out my whole YouTube
Yeah,
because, and so like during that time, I was just off,
yeah,
like everything. But it's an interesting thing because Instagram was I went on in 2018 and I quit astrology in 2017. So I was only like so I'm like thinking of this in my head. This is actually kind of funny. My Instagram was like remade and rebranded to myself in the beginning of 2018 because I realized that one of my biggest problems with being an astrologer, like on YouTube and all this other stuff, like, and I had a pretty big Facebook following at the time because Facebook was big, and I I went in on Instagram because it was my lowest followed
uh huh,
page. But what I wanted to do is clear up misconceptions of who I was because I was very limited in my like I'm gonna let you in
yeah,
here. And I had almost what felt like 2 personas. Like I was this mother of babies And I posted a lot of that on my Instagram, so that's why
Yeah.
people didn't really follow it.
Okay.
And then my Facebook and my YouTube was all like, this is astrology, this is like transits, like this is it. Even my Twitter group, like to about 10,000 at that time. And I was all very astrology and I put out all that stuff. And then I deleted my Twitter forever. And then I wiped my Facebook. Like I was just like
Uh-huh.
I was done with having two separate personas.
Okay.
And so I went back on Instagram. I didn't know where I was going to go, if I was ever going to like start astrology again. And I started to just post things I felt and pictures that I actually really liked.
Okay.
And it ended up being a lot of flowers. And, like I literally just like walk around and take pictures of flowers
No,
and I
yeah.
still fucking
The flower vibe,
so they had
yes. Yes. The
yes.
flower vibe definitely comes
So
through.
yeah, okay. Phew, thank God I haven't lost it. But no, it was like I was like, what would I do if I could just show like myself in like who I am so people could know who I am.
Yeah.
And I felt like Instagram was it because I've always been into like taking pictures, like photography, and that was a vibe that nobody was getting
Uh-huh.
with my YouTube and everything. And I was just over people not knowing who I was.
Yeah.
I was over people grabbing at me for content but not giving a shit that it was me
Yeah.
who they were taking it from. And it was about 2019 my Instagram started to grow
Mhm.
when people started to like um not like who I was. That was an interesting thing too. I keep saying interesting, but that was when people started to troll me in that area of social
Mm.
media. And it was around the time I started stories and posting like my thoughts. And I would get a lot of really nasty messages from people about like my personality, like the things that I believed in and cared about. But it didn't matter to me totally because I hadn't started YouTube again.
Yeah.
I was in this like middle section. So at this point now, like when you look at my story, it's been something I guess I've been doing
Yeah.
just to help me connect myself to what I do is really what it is because I I hated I don't know like I think it's a move and it's a good vibe like it's important to protect yourself from people. I'm not gonna lie, but like for some reason I was protecting myself from people and it hurt. I don't like I like
That's how
had to
I feel
connect.
right now.
Yeah.
That's yeah,
Yeah, okay.
literally.
It is a thing. I don't know. It's like didn't you I like I mentioned this to you earlier and I don't want to say like these words, but when somebody it's an assault, like a physical assault, I think when people are consuming you but they don't care that it's you.
Right.
It's basically yeah, you just feel
Yeah.
siphoned
No, yeah,
from.
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. What I want to do right now is I kind of want to like you like take it back and like kind of like tell the story of, Alyssa the Divine Venus because like there's so many like poignant moments in your career and in your life and I think that I just want to tell I want your audience, my audience to learn like your story from the beginning, kind of
Okay.
like a biography or something like that, but it
Oh my god.
but a
It
juicy
just
biography based on late night DMs that we've had together.
I love it. This is so I feel so romanticized right now. You're giving everything to this Pisces rising.
Yes, it's I did my research.
Okay.
Yeah, so but first I want to officially like introduce, the audience to the Hacking Astrology podcast. This is my new podcast where I was pretty much kind of triggered by certain things that people would say on astrology and certain like toxic concepts that go throughout social media and just thinking about reforming astrology for the future, creating astrology for the future in a way that matters. And so I just talk about all that type of stuff like decolonization, capitalism, racism, sexism, misconceptions, and just, yeah, we just talk about that here. So, in the second part of this podcast, we will be uh, go,
Talking
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut. I was like, I was really going deep inside of some of that stuff that you're really
yeah, no, no,
interested
no.
in.
I lost my train of thoughts. I was like, no, but um, the second part of the podcast will be, your perspectives on astrology, and I know that you have been considered like a troll and like an astrology troll on YouTube, particularly, or maybe Tumblr. I have to learn more about your Tumblr. My cat is here; he's like jumping all over the
Oh,
place.
actually,
um,
yeah, Tumblr's not that interesting, but it is. But well, Tumblr is something I recently learned about. That's what I was gonna say. I'm like interjecting. We can talk about it later,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, we'll get
it,
there.
yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, all right, cool, cool, cool. So, but yeah, like everyone else, I used to watch you on YouTube years ago. So I always
When
remembered
you were
you,
a
a
child.
child. Um, and I was like looking at YouTube astrologers, and I felt like they were all annoying or like boring. And then I found you, and I actually subscribed because I didn't think you were annoying.
Love that. That is the sweetest thing you could ever
That
say
is the
to me.
most Aquarius thing I could ever say.
It is. It's it's so funny too because I don't think I was annoyed. There wasn't any astrologers on YouTube that I was annoyed with. I was so bored.
Yeah.
And I've like and I just I wanted to vibe with people on astrology, and nobody in my life was vibing with me, you know? Like everything I was doing was just teaching people enough information so that they would talk to me about it. And I would go online and be like, okay, there's got to be somebody on here who can talk to me about astrology. Like, not even like I'm trying to look for a friend. I just want to put on a video where someone's talking about Libras and just like sit back and watch
Mm,
it. And I would do that and just be so bored. I was like, how come nobody's talking about astrology in a way that someone like me talks about
mm,
it? And I had thought about it for a couple months before I actually went through with it. But it definitely, that was something that wormed its way into my head. And then I couldn't like get off of the idea that maybe I was getting told that I should go on YouTube and do it.
mm,
And so, here we are. And that was 10 years ago because I was just I was looking for something to do. And it's so funny too when you're looking for something to do, and you might have felt this way with your podcast.
yeah.
Like you're looking for something to do with your life, and it's hard when you're in your 20s because you're like, I don't know what to do. Especially when you're a creative person or like, just more spiritual as well. What are you going to do, especially with the church? And we can go into like my whole life story about church and everything,
Uh-huh.
but the you're a spiritual person, but the church isn't for you,
Yeah.
right? So where do you go? Because there's a part of me that's like, as a 20-year-old or 19-year-old, I wanted to be a pastor. Like I was
Okay.
in that energy. So when I left my church, I didn't know what to do, and I was like, no, they don't accept me in these parts, these areas. I'm unaccepted. I am unclean or unholy.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't know what to do. And then when I was like immediately grasped onto astrology because it fit my spiritual nature, all of that stuff. And I'm like, but what should I do? Maybe I should be a painter. Maybe I should go back to school for and be a teacher. Like all these things I was thinking of. Not one time did that spiritual like astrology thing come into me and be like, yeah, this is what I should do. Again, it was like I was blocking all of that off, but it kept calling and it kept calling. And so one day it's like, how can I be me on the internet and expect that people will care about that? That seems to be like a huge ego thing that I would be falling into, like an ego
Mm,
trap. And then one day I was like, you know what? I can't get this out of my head. And I just did it.
mm.
So that I feel like that's so funny. I feel like I like really choppily explained that because I'm like, wait, we should start at the beginning.
No, yeah, and that's what I wanna do because I want people to get it, like, how we
Yeah.
got there, how did we become even an astrologer, how did we, like, end up, quitting and
Yes.
that whole process. Sorry, putting my cat down.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So, first thing that, well, also, then I met how I learned about you, how we connected was I met Sierra Watts,
Yeah.
and she told me that she knew you and that she was friends with you, and I was like, "You're friends with Alyssa, the Divine Venus?" I was like, and then yeah, I guess we just connected on
Yeah.
TikTok, and then you followed me, and then we followed each other on Instagram, and
Yeah.
then when we became friends was when I was like, "Hey, Alyssa," it was my birthday, and I was with Sierra, and I was like, "Hey, Alyssa, I love you so much. If you ever want to look at me and Sierra's charts to see if we're soulmates, um, I'm totally up for it."
Which, you know what I love about that, which is fun because I have Sierra's chart and I love Sierra. Um, it was 2020 and I didn't know what to do with my channel or my life. And I was being an astrology troll. And I trolled Natalia Taylor like super hardcore when I was drunk at night. And then I deleted it. But it was too late. The damage was done. And Natalia Taylor came after me. And we ended up collabing together, and it was this weird thing, like, I visited her in, like, Palm Springs, like, there was a lot of stuff happening with that, but we just did this thing together, and then after we did it, Natalia texts me and she goes, "Okay, my friend Sierra is, like, really into astrology, can I give her your number?" And I was like, "Okay." Like, I guess
Yeah.
so, and then I just started talking to Sierra, and then I was like, "Oh, this is fun," and then it, like, got this in while I was at the same time that I was talking to Sierra, I was trying to get in to understand the TikTok thing,
Uh-huh.
because I realized there's a whole community on TikTok, and I was like, honestly, a lot of YouTube astrologers were fucking making fun of it, and I didn't think that that was necessarily fair, because I was interested in what you guys were doing, and I felt like it was up my alley. So Sierra was already on it, and then it helped me kind of understand what was going with that. So it was like this weird YouTube collaborative with Natalia that led into being a friend to Sierra, which led to meeting you
Yeah.
and understanding the TikTok
I'm
community.
definitely gonna like put in the video and like all that stuff.
Oh,
Just
okay.
so we can
Yeah.
see people can see.
Yeah, it was the Natalia thing was so random and funny, like,
That
looking
video
back.
is so good. Oh my god. That is like legendary YouTube content. I love
It
stuff like that.
it was fun. It was most interesting because it was, like, my only time I knew I was about to be canceled. Normally when you get canceled, you wake up and then you're getting hated
Yeah.
and you don't know why, and you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's the adventure of, "Why am I
Isn't
getting"
that crazy? Like,
Yeah,
no one even told me I was doing anything wrong.
exactly, and then it just hits, and it's never for, like, what you think, um, it's always weird, but in this case, I talked to Natalia and her manager at the time, and they were like, "Okay, this is what's gonna happen. This first video is gonna come out on Natalia's channel, and you're about to be trolled mercilessly." Can't say that word. I was like, "Yeah, okay." And they're like, "Are you all right with that?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been trolled before. I can handle it." And it did hit kinda hard, I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
Um, Even though I knew, which is the thing. But then afterwards, we cleared it up. And then, uh, another funny thing is that because Natalia's video came out, I lost, like, 1,000 subscribers even on YouTube.
Oh
Like, there
shit.
was crossover, and they thought that I really did, like, attack Natalia and that everything was like, it was a big dramatic thing that did work, but then I don't know if I ever got them back from it.
Yeah.
Even in the end, and I was like, so in my brain, I was like, "Is this worth it? Should I have just, like, been like, 'Hey, Natalia, like, we're not doing this?'" Or but then it was like it was because of the TikTok stuff. Like, they really just everything works out the way it's meant to,
Yeah.
and when my gut, I felt like I needed to follow that path down,
Yeah.
which was fun. But it was like walking into a total cancellation and just having to deal with it for content.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, and then oh, and so this is for my podcast. So if you don't know who Alyssa is, she is one of the OG astrologers, the Divine Venus. I call her the mom of astrology. Eh,
And the I wanna be like Lilith, the mother of monsters.
Yes. I'm so for as a sun in the 8th house. That I'm a monster.
Real I feel like Lady Gaga. We're little monsters.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm so proud of you. You've grown up to be such big
Do
monsters.
you have a name for your audience?
No, I it's so funny because I was too old to, like, be okay with that when I started. Um, and it's not because it's bad, like, everybody has this now. I mean, everyone has an audience name, but like, everyone who followed me was, like, 15 to 20, but I was 26, and I felt as though that me having a name for my audience fell into, like, the Justin Biebers and, like, the Beliebers or, like, Selena Gomez and her Selenators or whatever they were, and I was like, "This is what kids do, and that's fine," but I just felt so dumb doing it, like, I was like, "This is not me. I'm too old for this." And it's so funny now that, like, I look back and I'm like, I was pretty young. I just was older than my audience
Yeah.
because nobody my age was really into astrology. It
Mm.
was you guys. It was Gen Z, and I'm, a millennial.
Yeah,
Or
the audience name comes along with a certain energy as well. It's more
yes.
playful.
Yeah. And I feel more playful, like, I feel like I have Saturn in the 8th, so in Scorpio, so I feel like I've gotten younger as I've gotten older, because when I was in high school, I was, like, very mature
Mm.
and very old. But now I'm like, "Yeah, what do you guys wanna do? You guys wanna play? You guys want
Yeah.
what's a 411?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom," but, like, damn. It's okay though.
Yeah.
It's fine getting younger as you get older, because then I can, like, withstand more of the pressure and the energy because this community is getting so much bigger.
Mm.
So I feel more equipped to be more of a mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because when I started, I was fucking train wreck. I
Yeah.
never would have been able to withstand this.
So what were you like as a child? Were you, like, shy? Were you, like, energetic? Did you see
I was very
ghosts?
I saw a lot of
You
ghosts.
did?
I was very yeah. I grew up Christian, like in a very Christian home, always going to church and everything, and I heard that ghosts aren't real. Um, they're demons. So you want to freak out a kid who sees ghosts, tell them that they're not seeing ghosts, they're actually seeing demons. Because like I would be like, oh my god, these demons are gonna drag me to hell, and I would hide under my blanket um, a lot at night. I was very, very scared of everything. I was very like afraid kid, and I was very shy, and I observed a lot. I stared at people all the time. That was my thing. My mom would be like kind of tap me all the time because I would just be standing there like
Hmm.
I had no concept of my own reality or my own energy. I was just like everybody else all the time, like wondering what everybody was doing. Yeah. And I had speech impediments too, so I didn't like to talk because adults would like comment on it.
Mm.
So I was like, there must be something a little bit wrong with speaking. So I really hated to talk until I was about 15 or 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is funny
What
now. But I
what
have
triggered that
a
shift?
my job I
Okay.
got. So when I would I was very churchy, grew up in a non-denominational church in South Barrington, Illinois. It's like a mega church.
Okay.
And when I was 13, my sister had this small group leader. She's younger than me, and that small group leader got her into volunteering at the church, right? I never volunteered there. I just kind of went on Sundays. I would go to like the main church, and I loved sitting and listening to church stuff. Like I as a kid, we could have gone to the Sunday school, but I always made an excuse to get out of Sunday school and like sit in the big church, in the main church, and watch it because I loved listening to like the pastors talk. I loved listening to like them
Yeah.
talk about the Bible. I was so interested in it, which is funny because
Yeah.
in high school I was very into mythology as well, like junior high. I love mythology. I love like, and they very much correlate. It's a lot of beautiful imagery, very into it. Um, Yeah, but when I was 13, I started volunteering at the church, and I grew connections within the church, but you can't get a job working until you're 15 because it's illegal. Yeah, so I got a job working at my church when I was 15 on this. Basically, it was called the facility setup technicians. We were like janitors on the weekends. And it's a huge church, like 20,000 people went there every weekend, right? So there were like a ton of bathrooms. It's a huge space. We walk miles every day. And I started to hang out with like people. And that's
Uh-huh.
kind of what it was. And people who would just like, I could slowly ease my way into talking to them. Where in high school, there's a lot of cliques. You know, people know you. You're in school for 45 minutes and then you have a 5 minute period, like class period, where you can maybe mingle and you're running to your next class. There's no real time to get to know anybody. And I would find myself, you just walking around this huge building with another person and you're getting to know them and they're asking you questions about yourself and you're talking and nobody's like, do you have a speech impediment? Like, like, or it's like, were you that girl that did this in seventh grade?
Yeah.
No one's asking you that. They just are like, so what do you do? Where do you go? Like, what's going on with you? And it was the first time I think anybody was just asking me regular questions.
Hmm.
And I started to break out of my shell, which was just stand there like freaked out all the time. I was in a constant state of freak out.
I
That was
relate
my
to you so much because I was also a very fearful child. I also had speech problems and I still do have speech problems and people call me out for it on TikTok sometimes.
oh,
I'm like,
what dicks.
I know, but people were saying like it's an Aquarius Mercury thing, which maybe, but um yeah, it's interesting. But
Yeah.
okay. So um where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Burbank?
No, I'm from Illinois.
Okay.
I actually moved around a lot. Um, Before high school, I probably lived in 13 different houses or something.
Oh
We didn't
really?
have like a set home. Um, but for the most part, you could say I lived in Crystal Lake, Illinois, which is a northwest suburb of Chicago, Illinois. It's kind of closer to Wisconsin than it is to Chicago. Um, but it's not Wisconsin at
Yeah.
all because right outside of Crystal Lake, you start getting into like these cornfields. Because a lot of in Illinois, it's like very cornfields, and then it's Chicago and it's suburbs.
Okay.
That's how you can. So a lot of people who live in any of the suburbs of Chicago will say they're from Chicago because when you think of Illinois, you think of nothing, and Chicago is like a huge city,
Yeah.
which kind of trickled its way out. So Crystal Lake is one of the last big cities of Chicago in the northwest suburbs, and that's where I lived a lot of my life. But
Okay.
I also lived in Springfield, Illinois when I was um like 4 to 8.
Yeah. What was your favorite place to live?
As a kid, I don't know. I really never
Or is it
like.
like situational based on like family dynamics?
Yeah, I never really liked in high school. So my mom did eventually want to keep us in a stable location, and so we bought a house when I was a freshman in high school, pretty much like right across the street from my high school. And looking back, that was really pretty. Like it had beautiful, it was very beautiful there, like just trees and green and safe because we're right by this high school. Um, I could, I would go for runs like around and at nighttime and it was not a big deal. Like, so that was really nice. But I never connected with Crystal Lake. I always, as soon as I got my job at my church, which was in South Barrington, which was 30 minutes away, I wanted to be there out in that area. So I would always like never come home. I would just find friends out there like who went to different schools and like hang out with them at night
Yeah.
was more fun for me. Though the cool thing about my high school, because I went to Crystal Lake Central High School, Sean Evans is the He Sean Evans from Hot Ones on YouTube.
Okay.
Um, he's like a big interviewer now. He was a year younger than me, and so I kinda knew him in high school, and he's, like, their big claim to fame, and so even part of me is like, "I'm not even my fucking high school's biggest claim to fame." Like, there's no connection between me and Crystal Lake, even though I live there.
Uh-huh.
Like, Sean Evans, he kicked me out of that. Fuck Sean Evans.
Yeah, you gotta once Pluto moves into Aquarius, you'll get more powerful, and people will
Yeah,
recognize your name.
and they'll finally be like, "Oh, Alyssa Sharpe went here.
Yeah,
Fuck Sean Evans." That's what they'll all be like. Just
yeah,
kidding.
exactly. Uh,
Sean was a very kid.
okay. Do you have any like interesting astrocartography lines anywhere, or just like yeah?
Yeah, actually, I've only lived in my good ones, which is funny. Well, I grew up in Chicago area. I lived there until I was 25 in the area. Like, and I lived in the city of Chicago for a year before I moved to Texas. And when I moved to Texas, I didn't even know I wasn't into astrocartography. I had been studying astrology, but like pretty much natal charts only until I was because I discovered astrology when I was about 22. So by the time I moved to Texas, Austin, Texas, I was 25. Didn't know really a lot about astrocartography, and then started to learn about it and realized I was on my Venus line. So I was in my birth chart energy on my Venus line in Austin. I started my YouTube channel pretty much right away, or not right away. It was a year after.
Hmm.
I got married. I had both my kids there. Very Venus line
Yeah.
stuff, right? Um, I hated it though. I also have a daytime chart, so Venus isn't my most beneficial planet.
Hmm.
And that's something is like I've always wanted to live in LA. Like LA is it's been my dream since I was a kid. Like I wanted to live in fucking Hollywood. I wanted to be a movie star. Like that's what I wanted to be when I was a kid. Even though I couldn't talk and I was afraid of everything. I
Yeah.
was like, one day I'll just be a movie star and everything will be perfect in my life and I'll live in Hollywood. So I started to look at the astrocartography lines, and in LA, I'm on my crossing Jupiter and Saturn.
Okay.
Jupiter is like pretty much right on my rising, and Saturn's right on my midheaven here.
Okay.
So it's like, that's legit because Saturn's not my worst planet. Mars is. And I can handle Saturn. Like I'm at life path 8. It's ruled by
Hmm.
Saturn. Like I have moon opposite Saturn. I was like, I can do this. And then Jupiter's on my rising. It was like, this is gonna be great. Oh my God, it was so fucking hard to move here. But once I did, I found a lot of stability. I had a huge spiritual change. And I live in Hollywood, just like my younger self wanted me to. I live in North Hollywood, but my younger self wouldn't know the fucking difference.
I love that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I have never really been to the West Coast actually, ever.
are you from Florida?
No, I'm from New York City, but I'm
Oh,
moving to
okay.
Florida.
Oh, you're from New York. Oh, yes, I remember your videos.
But my
Mm.
vibe is very Florida now.
Yeah, I was like, you have more of the Florida vibe,
That's
but
why
you're
I'm
from
leaving.
here. You're more laid back. I visited New York one time when I was 21 for a week, and I was kind of into it.
Yeah.
I liked Chicago more, and I always I'd never gone there before. I was in my 20s. I had been in California a few times in my youth because my dad works in California.
Mm,
He just never wanted to move there.
yeah.
So he always would be on calls out in California and he'd live in Illinois. And every once in a while we got to go to California. And when we did, I'd be like, why don't we live here? This is the most amazing place in the world. We should be here. And he hated it. He hated it so much. So we never moved. And that's why like it was just such a dream of mine. I'm like, this is my biggest dream, Dad. Why are you ruining my dreams? And I eventually had to make my own dreams. And I moved here in 2017. It was very, very lofty until 2019, but I've been in like the same place since 2019. So it's been 3 years. But yeah, pretty much 5 years ago. So how old am I? 30. Oh, it's 31. That's interesting.
Okay.
31 when I finally like was like, I don't belong in Texas. I'm gonna go to LA and I'm gonna live out my fucking dream.
I love that. I That's definitely where I'm gonna, well, not end up, but it's one of my stops.
Yeah,
LA, California. Not yet though, because this
not
is
yet.
my first time like going to another state. Like live I guess, well, I've lived in England for a year when I studied abroad, and I lived, well, I only lived in I went away to college in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Um but yeah, this is like my first big, I guess, like permanent move.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool. Congratulations
yeah,
again.
no, I'm so excited. There's a lot to get done, but
Where
um
what city are you moving in Florida?
St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Yeah. So
When we were my I have family that lives in or a lot of my dad's family lived in Orlando.
yeah.
Yeah. I
That's one of
I don't
my
like
first stops when I get there, only because I want to go to Disney and Universal Studios again.
I yeah. I went to Orlando or like Universal Studios before they like got all the cool stuff. Because I remember as a
Oh,
kid, we went on the Jaws ride, and I'm
yeah,
like, "What
same.
is Jaws?" I never saw Jaws, and then like this earthquake ride
Yeah,
and
I
Back
remember
to the
that
Future.
too.
Yeah, yeah, everything was like, "This is not stuff I'm into," and then afterwards, they revamped. There's a lot of cooler things there now, isn't
Yeah,
there?
yeah, there is. I love just, I go alone and I just ride the rides, and it's the most North Node fifth house, like a 0 degree Pluto in the fifth house energy.
That is. I like being alone.
I
I'm
do
not
a
gonna lie.
lot of stuff alone.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
I
funny.
do most of my stuff alone, but I'm trying to trust people and learn how to like have people in my life.
Well, you're doing a better job in a lot of ways than I am, and you're way younger because you're, podcasting with people.
Right.
I have yet to have someone podcast with me, and I'm very fucking weird about collabs on my channel. That's people. I like mm. I have a thing about them because sometimes, like, you'll realize, oh, this person you collab with, because that people are people, and you'll start to realize your values and things change, and then you're like, and now they're cemented on my channel forever.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I'm very like very eighth house, and I've gone through so many friends, and not on my own desire to go through friends,
Mhm.
right? Like, because even like I said, when I joined started working at my church, and that was my first friend group and stuff. When I left my church, none of them talked to me anymore. And all of a sudden, I had no more friends. So I had to make new friends at like a restaurant job. But then you leave one restaurant and you go to another and you lose those friends because they're really just drinking buddies or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I started YouTube, there was a lot of the YouTube astrologers who were with me back then are no longer there doing it,
Uh-huh.
or there was like a falling out or something like that. And so I wasn't able to keep those friends. And so I'm like such a like it feels so weird because I've always heard that you can tell like the judge of a good character is how long this person's been friends with these people. But I'm
Right.
like, but what if your friends aren't real friends and like you've just kind of been alone your whole life, and that isn't about your character. It's like, well, it is your character, you're just a loner
Yeah.
because people don't get you. What about those people? Is that because I have a bad character, or is it because I don't connect to everybody?
Right. No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely valid, and yeah, I definitely agree. One thing I wanted to ask was, you were talking about your dad. Like, what is your relationship with your parents, or what has it been growing up, or how has it transformed?
um like growing okay, my mom came from a pretty like white trash situation growing up. Okay. Like, I said that one time and someone said that was rude. And I was like, I don't know. Like, my family, I have a lot of like cousins and stuff that you have been in and out of jail. There's like a very strong, like, low class vibe. And I'm not trying to be classist at all, but there's this energy to where my mom came from that is very destructive. and very much like enjoys staying in the grime, right? And gets in with the bad crowds and does the bad things and just makes all of the choices that keep putting their life into bad places. Like even recently, my mom sent me a news article about my cousin who was like in the paper with the mugshot because they did something horrible, and I was like, cool, like that's my family anyway. um and my mom comes from this energy, and my dad, he comes from a different type of family. His father was a local celebrity who did the news when the news mattered on TV. And like he lived on the lake, and he had a pool, and he had boats, and his brothers all had boats, and they were considered more like upper middle class or whatever. And then they met when they were very, very young. And I guess my mom was 19 and my dad was 21. And then they had my brother like immediately, pretty much on their first date. They got pregnant. And then I'm only a year and a half younger than my brother. So then they just had me. And then they had my sister who's a year and a half younger than me. Like, if you can imagine like what it means when like only fools rush in, that is what my parents did.
Yeah.
And so what I grew up in was just incredibly rocky, unstable. Maybe they could have made it work had they like understood that they come from two separate worlds. They don't understand each other. They had a strong attraction to each other, and there's probably a lot of chemistry, and I can see that with them. But they didn't give it time to grow, to flourish. They just had children right away. And my mom never wanted to work, and so she latched onto my dad, who's like a very hard worker, because he comes from like a line of hardworking men and women, who try to work up the ladder. And my dad's very much like ego driven and success in that sense, and my mom's very much like, thank God I don't have to work because
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. And my mom would always say stuff like, all I wanted to ever do was be a mother. And I'd be like, even as a kid, like, then why are you the worst mother that ever walked the earth? Like, I just like, there was no part of me after I was cognitively aware of what was going on that thought she was a good mother. And she was abusive to me, like mentally, emotionally, physically, and just treated me like crap because I'm her oldest daughter, and was very nice to my younger siblings. Like, so I was kind of the scapegoat. And I learned to isolate myself when I was younger. And my dad just worked all the time. And there was a time when it was pretty obvious, like I was my dad's favorite. And when my mom didn't like that. So there was this like evil queen type of
Yeah.
jealousy stuff. Things that like later on in life I really dove into in astrology, like the
Okay.
moon, like even fairy tales. Like, so I don't know if we
Even having your children.
yes, when there's actually a quote that little girls steal their mother's beauty,
Yeah.
and it's a thing. And I didn't know it was a thing until I had my daughter. And after my son, like I had my boy, and like my body bounced back. I looked prettier after I had him. Like it was something. It was just like a very like this was easy, like that was easy, like quick, whatever. I had my daughter. I couldn't lose any weight for 2 years. I broke out, my face looked different.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
just kind of puffy and weird. I didn't look like myself at all, and she was so beautiful, like this perfect, like, little porcelain doll. And I remember hearing that and being like, "Oh, it's a real thing." And then I started to I had major postpartum depression with her, like, and instead of like allowing that to take over, because I'm a studier, a thinker, I started to look into my relationship with my mom, the oldest daughter syndrome, like this line
Mm.
of passing on
Mm.
youth to another female, like who will then pass on her youth, and how women are of the earth, and we are just being reborn
Yeah.
into our children, and how men are different in that sense, like when the way that they're energetically created.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, and how I it's weird too because it's my Saturn return and I have Saturn opposite moon. And so I really was able to analyze the dynamics of toxic females and how I've been around a lot of it for a long time, how it's karmically in my line, my
Yeah.
family, how it's been toxic female energy that's destroyed me in certain ways and hurt me the most, and how a lot of it stems from the fact that people don't even know what real feminine energy looks like. And that was actually a big breakdown in my own life when I quit astrology and I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with my life. And I just started diving into female energy even more,
Mm.
just the feminine side. And I was I was like so it's intoxicating to go down that because it's all dark, it's all shadow, it's all like this dreamy, sleepy, s- dark shit that is of fairy tales.
Yeah.
Like fairy tales are built off this feminine energy. That's why the mother is dead. That's why the evil queen is there. Like feminists were trying to attack that sort of idea of old fairy tales and they're like, no, there's a reason for it. It's literally prophetic about what happens to little girls and what they grow up in and how they have to be married off and how there's the good queen and the evil queen, all of that. And actually that's what I podcast on. So I started
Yeah.
just putting all that into a podcast. That's my Embracing Glory podcast. I just
Yeah.
talk about
Well, tell us about your podcast real quick.
um my podcast is called Embracing Glory. I The first episode actually is because I was watching too much Rick and Morty and I wanted to talk about the multiverse. And then I was like, what do I talk about next? And then I was like, I have all of these notes and study on fairy tales. So I started talking about fairy tales and how they relate to the age of Aquarius and love and like modern culture. And then that kind of got into the Bible because a lot of fairy tales relate to the Bible. And that was stuff that I grew up in. So I was basically just starting to go down this list of things that I know and how myth, fairy tale, and Bible, religion all intersect.
Okay.
And they're all trying to tell us one thing about this woman, which is like the woman in the middle of the world card in tarot.
Mhm.
It all has to do with her surrounded by the wreath or the Ouroboros, which Ouroboros is Rahu. She's the moon. Rahu and Ketu, or like North Node, South Nodes, surround this woman in this world card. Anyway, like it's all coming to this head of this female energy, this woman that people have neglected for thousands of years.
Mhm.
And when I was really getting into that, I started to realize like this is kind of why I had to live my life that I lived, or like had this very karmically tumultuous relationship with my mother,
Yeah.
who was abusive and everything. Now, if you're going to ask me about my relationship with my parents now, I talked to them a couple days ago. Like I'm like I talk to them. They don't watch any of my stuff, which is when I decided to like I was very hurt by them.
Okay.
They rejected my astrology so much. Their friends started attacking me on Facebook, so I had to like delete a ton of
Oh
people at one
god.
point back in the day. And like everyone just started telling me that I was evil. My parents were really embarrassed of me. And when I quit, they were so happy that I quit astrology. They wanted me to work at like a retail store. They're like, well, you don't have a college education. And I was like, I'm fucking Alyssa Sharpe. I'll figure something out. And they were like, "Well, no, like that's resting on your laurels." And I was like, "I quit for like 6 months. Let's like I can maybe get this back. I don't know what to do yet." I was trying to figure out what my life was like. And I had to live with my parents cuz I lost everything when I decided to quit and move out to LA. So when I was living with them, I was reintroduced to these toxic patterns.
Mm.
And after that, I didn't talk to them for 2 years. And then started to talk to them again and re-enter. But I realized a big thing that I always was holding on to is that I would never talk about my parents' abuse because I love them too much. My parents hurt me in any way, shape, or form. I would never talk about it because I love them and I'm their daughter and I would never put our family on blast. And after all of that went down and I realized they never even watched my stuff anyway, and they were never supportive. I just started to be
Mm.
like, we all have shit with their family, and if someone's going to be upset with me because I do talk to my parents, because I do, and I not every day, I ignore them a lot, but I do. Like I'm like they're my parents, and we have small talk or we talk about what's going on in their lives or they kind of know what's going on in my lives. I don't ask them for help. I don't want anything to do with
Mhm.
any sort of like parental relationship in that sense. I just talk to them and I talk about them when it comes up because
Yeah.
I'm there is a lot of like me and understanding their dynamic in my life that I feel like can help a lot of people actually. Because I think a lot of people have dealt with something very similar to what I dealt with
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah, I relate to you so much because I have like the same kind of relationship with my dad. Like, just we talk, and we help
Mhm.
each other out or whatever, but it's not like super close or anything. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, okay. So you were 13 and then that's when you were into Christianity, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it was my whole life into Christianity, but it
okay.
was 13 when I was like more involved in a weird work relationship with Christianity.
Okay, cool. And you would go to church, and you said that you started volunteering. You got a job around 15, 16, and then at 19, you wanted to become a pastor.
Yes. Okay, well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And actually, it's funny, I got my job on my 15th birthday. We had to My parents had to sign a waiver, and my boss had it ready for her a week early. They had to get it signed in court too, to say so otherwise it's not child labor, which was something funny. But I was like, no, I want to work. I want to make money. I want to get out the house. I want to be in here. Like I want to just spend time in this place. And that was where my life was from 15 to 18. And then I quit that particular job and got another job working within the church.
Okay.
And then it was a temp job. And this is like very interesting because I got it was a temporary job position and I did really well. And there were other temporary positions held. And so they were like, we're going to lay off some people. And so they went for me. And I asked why, because I consistently get like high scores and like all this stuff. I was very good at it. It was a customer service job.
Okay.
And I was good at it at that
Uh-huh.
point. I knew how to talk to people. The reason why I was actually really good at it, which they didn't like, but it's a fun story, is that I hated talking to people on the phone so much that that's what my job was, right?
Yeah.
Like I would literally like they would call in and be like, "Hey, so my church is called Willow Creek, and it had this other part of it called the Willow Creek Association, which did business with other churches because they had gotten to a prestigious place enough where if they did something, other churches wanted to use it
Mm.
in their smaller churches.
Okay.
So they would sell it. So it was a
Mm.
business. So I worked in this business aspect of it. And they would call up and they would be like, "Hi, I got a question about this." And I'd be like, "Okay." And I would get them off the phone so fucking
Yeah.
fast. Like I just like didn't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
I was told repeatedly that we were doing ministry with them. And I was like, "But they're already Christians, right? They already have churches. I don't need to talk to this person and talk to them about their fucking mom or dad that's dying. I don't care." And the women around me were so good at that. Like I would listen to them, they'd be like, "Oh, sweetie, you're gonna be fine." And I
Oh,
was like, "She's ordering Sunday school material from you.
right.
How on earth do you know like anything about this person?" Anyway, but that's what they did, and it was very churchy, even though it was a business.
Yeah.
And I I would just take the most calls repeatedly, and my call time was very low. So I was very efficient, but not for the church. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Anyway, they let me go, and I asked why, and it wasn't for that reason. They said I dressed like a slut.
Oh, no.
And I was an 18-year-old virgin, right? And in 2005, I had never even kissed a guy, actually. It was interesting, and I was very good and never had a boyfriend or anything.
Okay.
But it was like I have a really long torso, and all the shirts in 2005 were like short. It was just a style. So if I bent over, you'd see my back.
Mm.
And they said that there's a big issue. So I went out and I
Oh.
cried when I found that out. Like I just bawled my eyes out and I was like, I cannot believe that it is 2005 and I'm having an old woman tell me I'm a slut. Like I was like, what is it? Like even I never really grew up in that. One thing I can say about my mom is that she was very anti that like energy, you
Okay.
know? She wasn't like a you gotta she was very like you have to be pure and I wasn't allowed to date till I was 16, which didn't matter anyway because no one was trying. But like I was just very much n- I knew shit, you know? Like even when I was younger. Like I knew about problems with women. I knew about like problems with the world. My mom was assertive even if she was mean to me and I was mean back to my mom. So it was kind of like being told I was a slut. I was like, "No, I'm not." And but I cried about it because I'm a Pisces rising, and I went back in and I yelled at my boss that fired me. It was a man, and I was like, um, no. And
That's so much Lilith energy.
it is. It was, and I was like, this is why you can't fire me. This is a problem, and blah 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 blah. Like this is discrimination against my body, and this all this stuff. And they're like, okay, you're right, and they gave me my job back. And then I was like, I quit. I don't want to. But in my brain, in my young 18-year-old mind, I was like, this church needs me.
Mm.
I was like, they need me. There's these old women running this area, like they're dumb. They have these weird old standards. They're toxic. Yeah, this church needs me. And so I got a job working for, or I was volunteering working for the student ministries, which was like high school
Uh-huh.
kids. And I was a leader and I was really like involved. And then I was trying to get this one job. And my boss, who was my boss, told me that she heard about me from the church and there were too many red flags. And I was like, uh-huh, too many red flags. And they weren't real red flags. It was like my personality traits or something. And some of them were because I am kind of shy. Like I can be assertive, but then I am kind of passive. So
Uh-huh.
like people would think that I was being a bitch or something if I just stared at them,
Yeah.
right? And so she didn't give me this job that I volunteered for 4 months for, like, every day unpaid,
Yeah.
and I was trying to get it, so she didn't give it to me, and I had to get another job because I was out of money at that point, and I still stayed at the church because I was still like, "They still fucking need me." Like, I just they need me, and then I started working with this or I was still volunteering for, like as a leader, kind of in a sense of like what I do now. I was good at it. Like I led these high school kids, like taught them about stuff. I rewrote Bible stuff so that they'd understand it more. And I enjoyed all of that. And I was like, I'm gonna be a pastor. And there was this guy who he didn't think I sucked apparently. And he worked at the church and he asked me to do this thing with him where we like went around the church and fixed things and like made it look better. And I loved that because it was like fixing the church.
Mm.
And that made me like really happy. And so I somehow got more involved. And I was like, this is good. I'm getting more involved. I know what I want to do. I want to fix the church. I know I have it in me. Like they need me. Like I really just believed this. Saturn was in Leo at the time. So
Uh-huh.
that was like it was a big like me just being like, I have zero confidence in anything except for the fact that this church needs me. And then I went to this party and I was sexually assaulted at the party and I went to the police and because they have issues with women apparently um a boy or a guy that I knew picked up the that I went to the police wrote my whole sexual assault story down from the person who did it and gave it to the elders of the church and they didn't know what to do with it because it was a big problem because I worked with this guy at the church at one point and he worked at the church. So it was like, oh, girl gets, you know, I don't want to like go into it too much, but R worded at the church. This is a big problem. And they blamed it on me being an alcoholic because I was blackout drunk when it happened and told me I wasn't allowed to talk about it and basically told me I couldn't do anything anymore. They were like, "You can't volunteer at the church anymore. You can't do any of this stuff. Like, you just have to go." If I walked into like a room with a bunch of high school kids because they wanted to know what happened to me, and one of the people who worked there told me to leave right away. They're like, "You can't be here. You can't be here. Like, if they see your face, they're gonna ask questions." And so I was like, "Oh." So I tried to be good for about 6 months, and I went back to go talk to the elders. I was like, "I'm good. I just want back in. Like, get me back in because you guys need me. Apparently, like, you need to know." And I talked to the guy that I did. I worked on the church with, and he was the last person I talked to there. And I said, "I I c- I think I conveyed in so many words that I felt like they needed me." Like, just like that's where it's going back in my brain is like I should be back here. I should tell people about this because this is a problem. And he wrote me an email and he said that the elders didn't think I was ready. And I was like, nobody's talked to me. And then it hit me that they wanted me to disappear.
Mm.
And that this whole time that I had been trying to like put my energy into this church and like help it and heal it and fix it, they were trying to get rid of me. And I was always in my own little world. I didn't even know. And I knew like people didn't like me, but I didn't think that it mattered because the right people liked me at the right time. Like I could stay because I wasn't doing anything bad. They just didn't like me. So when I left my church, I was 20
Mhm.
and I didn't know what to do. I became kind of a train wreck because that was what I wanted to do, right?
Right.
I wanted to fix the church. I just wanted to so bad. I wanted to like let them know like no, you can't treat women this way. Like this is what you have to do. And I could help. And I wasn't even like a bitch about it. I was nice. Like I was very kind and nurturing to like whatever I needed to do. And I knew that about myself. I was like, I'm good at this. But they didn't want to hear me when that stuff happened. So I couldn't sort it out. It was too much, especially because the church was so big. So it was like getting canceled, but in a real life setting. All of the people I had known since I was 13 all of a sudden were calling me a slut. They were calling me a drunk. Because of me, the church cracked down on underage drinking, which cost a lot of people their jobs. So like I was like the one to blame for a lot of things happening. And so everybody was talking about me, but I wasn't allowed to talk. So it was like very much like getting canceled in real time. Having
Yeah.
people I would be at the church and I would see somebody who just wrote on their blog because the internet was so new. They wrote on their blog about me,
Oh
about how
god. You got
like
started early with this stuff.
I did. And I walked up to her because I was like, fuck no. I said, Jenna, you need to talk to me about this and you need to take that blog down. And she went, like freaked out, right? Like, and this is so funny because we're still dealing with that. We always look at
Yeah.
like, you cancel somebody on the internet and like not in front of their face. And so I was able to see these people walk up to them and be like,
Yeah.
you need to talk to me. I will talk to you about this, but you cannot have that up there. You don't know what happened. I spent a day at the police station in the hospital because of this. You're acting like it's fuel for your writing career to take off. Like, no, let's talk about this. And she just stared at me, did this, no, 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 and turned around and like walked away. And I just stood there like,
Damn. Didn't even say anything.
no, she fucking she panicked. And I noticed like a lot of people, she was the probably the biggest one that I like just ran up to and confronted. But there was a woman who was like, "Hi, Alyssa, we can't really be seen." And she was like really freaked out about it. And but I want to give you this. And she gave it to me. She's like, okay, okay, I guess bye forever. And I was like, this is so strange. Because I didn't really, when you know, like that stuff's happening, but you don't fully, it was too weird. It was a lot on me. So
Mm.
when I finally chose to like leave the church, I told everybody I got kicked out because I think in so many ways I did. But I made the decision. I came back one time to try to talk to this guy and he wouldn't look at me. And so I was just standing there, like trying to get his attention. Like, I need to talk to you. about something. He wouldn't look, so I was like, "Okay." Some other 2 girls came up to me that I knew, or they were 2 women, and one of them gave me a hug, and she goes, "Oh, you smell like cigarettes." And I was like, "Yeah, because that's what I do now, because 'cause I'm fucking stressed out." And the other one, who was supposed to be a really good friend of mine, just, like, looked at me and said, "That's disgusting," and walked away, and I remember staring at that guy and being like, "Are you gonna talk to me? No?" And I turned around and, like, walked out, and it was, like, the last time I tried to be a part of the church, but it was all during my Saturn square, and it's just interesting because during the time between my Saturn square and my Saturn return, I was learning astrology. Like, I got kicked
Mm,
out of the church, discovered astrology, like, was drinking a lot, so in a way, very much spiritual, like, drinking, spirits, astrology, trying to get into some energy that I knew that was mine. And then during right before my Saturn return, I was like felt very called to like deliver astrology. And in a way, like I look some of the videos and I'm I have some like who knows if they're my own qualities or if they're qualities that I picked up by being in the church. But
mm,
I definitely see it in the way that I delivered information that I noticed when people kind of would copy my demeanor. I'd be like, "Yeah, I kinda do it like a pastor at my church would."
yeah.
Yeah, and I never really realized it, but it was like that was the way that I knew or the way that I was trained. So so that was like a whole lot of stuff, but that was like that's it's weirdly in my blood and at this point now I'm in my Saturn square again.
Uh-huh.
It's been 15 years, 16 years since I left my church. And you know what like is in my brain still is the church needs me. I need to fix it. I keep like you're hacking
Yeah,
fix astrology. Like you know what I want to fix more than anything is the church. Like it's running rampant still. It's still fucking over women. And all I want to do is be like, no, 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 I got it.
yeah,
I can fix you. You need me.
yeah, yeah.
And they don't want me.
Okay. Yeah, no, okay, so I feel like there's just like a small, well, pretty large gap. So between like 21 and your Saturn return, or like
Mm,
20, like what were you
yeah.
doing then?
Oh, I was these are my good years. This is when
Okay.
I this is my fun years, but they're kind of a blur.
Oh,
I was very
really?
I was very drunk. Like, I
Okay.
didn't do drugs. I, like, dabbled in some pills on occasion. I was not a drug user. I didn't even get high. I really loved alcohol, and there was actually something and I really don't wanna make this, like, so deep or anything, but,
Yeah.
after the stuff with my church, because I was such a virgin and bad things happened to me, you know, within sex to me and not because I wanted it or anything. And then I was like labeled a whore. I remember being like super, super pure for like a few months, like just feeling pure and like was just being as good of a person as I could be. And when I chose to like just cut off the energy from my church, I said to myself, well, they all think I'm a big slut. They all think I'm a big alcoholic. What's that like? And I didn't sleep around, which is interesting, but I wasn't into that. Like, I just was like, the last guy I made out with isn't going to be someone who took it from me.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to take control over my body.
Mm.
And I made out with like a lot of guys, like a lot. Like in a like I can be like I'm not a slut. I've only had like my number is 5 guys, but
Yeah.
like hundreds. Like, and I would just it'd be like, "Oh, I'm drinking, there's a guy," and I'd walk up and
Yeah.
be like I would test the limits of my own ability to, like, I guess, femme fatale in that way,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So, during that time from is it's a very strange thing because right now I'm known as an astrologer, but at that time I was known which it's a stupid word or phrase, I hate saying it. I think it's dumb. I don't know why it's derogatory at all, but everyone called me a party girl.
Okay.
Like, that's what everybody called me, and
Uh-huh.
I would always, like, be embarrassed. like, by that title. I was like, "Can you just
Uh-huh.
call me, like, a drunk hoe or something?" Like,
Yeah.
"You're calling me a party girl," but it was because I was always up for partying, you know?
Mhm.
You wanted to go to a bar? I was there. Um, "Oh, you wanna go to a party? Sure, take me." And I was always, like, the life of the party
Mhm.
to a point that people would consider me more of an alcoholic than them, even if they were always at the same parties as me. And so that is what I did. And when I wasn't doing that, I was a server and a bartender and
Mhm.
was just so I was always working. I made a lot of money, serving, bartending. I'm charming, I could do it. It was just whatever. And then I would go out and drink and I learned about astrology.
Okay.
Um, I would also say that between those times too, I ran 2 Chicago marathons.
Ooh.
Um, so I was a runner too, and I think that's
Okay.
probably how I sustained my life, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. Because I ran. So I was running, drinking, working, and studying astrology, and that's just what I did for
Yeah.
years until,
Okay.
um, I met my husband, and
What
he
year
was my
was that?
2010. The beginning of 2010, he was a manager at my job, and he got transferred to our restaurant, and he's 11 years older than me, and he liked me, and I would say that, like, people liked me, but I wasn't into them because I really wasn't into people, right? It was like I was always just running away from my past, I guess you could say, but I wasn't. And that's the thing too, I wasn't just running away from my past. I mean, I was running, I was drinking, and I was overworking myself, which looks like running, and that's true, and I didn't wanna deal with my emotions, but I was also studying astrology, so I was building something. And that's a lot of my key videos. All of that information I would give was stuff that I learned when I was drunk because I would just be sitting there with people being like, "So, where's your," like, I would have my phone out and I'd be like, "So you're Aquarius,
I'm crying.
yeah," and I would, like, learn all about you while being drunk, and then I would, like, talk to you about your past, and I would, like, get to know somebody as I'm looking at their natal chart, which allowed me to sort of see different energies and stuff. Anyway, and then all the managers at that point, my bosses at my restaurant job were like, "Yeah, she's a party girl." And Chris came in, didn't know that, and was into me, and I was like into him, and we we were we moved into I moved into his apartment like I had never had a boyfriend really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I did have this like kind of boyfriend. He broke up with me after 2 months, and it was never like anything more than I called him my boyfriend. We were official on Facebook, but he wasn't any more than any of the other guys I like dated, I guess. Um, in between, like I would like I'd fuck.
Wait, hold on. You told me once that you met your twin flame at 18.
I did, and I don't know if I want to totally talk about it, but
Okay, okay, okay.
I would say this because I think twin flame is subjective and it's a weird,
Right, right, right.
but I would say that like the energy of what I see in him is that because when I went back and I looked at my life and what I always wanted to do, when I think of twin flame, I think of somebody who puts you on your purpose and your path, and that
Yeah.
whenever you're back on your purpose and path, their energy wants to align with that too, or it would be their similar purpose. And so
Yeah.
when I talked about that guy who had me work with him on fixing the church, that's what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Like he was somebody who I felt like wanted to do the same things I did within the church, right?
Okay.
And but I fucking loved him so much though. So that's why I'm like I like was
I feel you. I know that feeling.
yeah. I like and that's where I'm like, ah, if I even go back to that feeling, like think of it, I can feel it again like it was fucking yesterday, because
Yeah.
that feeling never dies. And that's where you're like, so
Yeah.
I've had to process that a lot more recently because he was also the guy I was trying to talk to going back to the church. Like I just was like, if I could just if I could talk to him, if he would turn around, I don't have to go this train wreck way, right?
Right.
I'll just talk to him. We'll work it out. Like he- I'll I'll just explain my situation or something. Something we'll be friends. Like it'll be fine and he'll let me back
Yeah.
in to this world, but he didn't turn around. And so I always think about that like he just didn't turn around. And because of that I got put on my path, which to me is also very twin flame stuff. Like
Right.
like he's very
Hmm.
for the 2 years that I knew him, he his name and his, energy come back up every time I think about what I'm supposed to do with my life, right? And I'm like, "Why?" Or, like, if I go back, I'm like, "Why did I leave the church? Like, what was it? Oh, he's right there." You know? "Did I
Yeah.
try to come back? Yeah, I did. Oh, he was right there." You know, like, all that
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm like, "Okay." You know, I see that energy of that, and because of him too, because I loved him so much and I felt like he just wanted nothing to do with me after all of that. It was one of those things too where I was like, "Well, fuck it," right? Like, I don't care about anything. And so I didn't date anybody, like, really because I didn't like them. I liked that guy. I would get to know somebody, right? And I would, like, be like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I could date this guy, I like him." And then I'd get, like, a month in, I'd be like, "You're not like that guy." You know?
Yeah.
Like, that guy was how I rated everybody. Like, "He
Yeah.
was way better than you." And it didn't and people would be like, "Alyssa, he was a dick. He broke your heart." And I was like, "Yeah, but before that, he had
Yeah.
all the personality traits of a person that I would like."
Mm.
And this person, they seem cool, and then they're not. And then I don't know why. They're just not, and so he still rates above them. That's all I could think of. So
Yeah.
when I met Chris and I was 24,
Okay.
so I had been gone from the church for 4 years-ish.
Yeah.
Um, I felt as though he had enough traits that I liked. Um, some of them were lies. You know, like some of them I think I projected onto him because he was in a position of authority over me and
Okay.
he helped me a lot in certain
Yeah.
situations. But like I said, I was a party girl and the managers didn't want anything to do with me. And he sort of was like, "No, this is cool." And they were like, "Oh, if Chris says she's cool, she is." And so he helped my reputation. And if you look at like why I was on this downward train wreck spiral, it was because of my reputation. It's like I got
Mhm.
canceled when I was 20 and I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
And he kind of helped me get out of it. And then so
Mm.
I moved in with him after 6 months and
Mhm.
it was all so fast. And then our restaurant shut down and they moved Chris over to Texas from Chicago. So
Mm.
he goes, "You wanna come with me?" And actually, he didn't even ask. He's a Scorpio, so he was like
You're coming.
basically, he assumed I told him, I was like, "I'm still debating if I'm gonna move with you," and he goes, "Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I" he's like, "We live together, we're gonna move. They're gonna move you too," and I was like, "Yeah, but we haven't been dating a full year, um, and I'm, I don't know, you're my first boyfriend." And but the one problem was that I didn't have a place to live, and I did make the choice to go, like, he didn't drag me, I don't want anybody to think, like, that happened. Like, he was 11 years older than me, and he took advantage of my situation, that's not true at all. I was looking for a way out in the end, because there was nothing that I could do on my own anymore in that area where I lived, and so even when I revisit it, I have, like, a lot of trauma. Like, it I went on a road trip in November and we just drove through that area, and it was a lot of, like, like, I couldn't
Yeah.
get out of how much everybody there hurt me, like, they just kinda broke me down, and so when it came time to like, when I had a plane ticket out of there, I took it, is pretty much
Mm.
what it was, and I moved to Austin, and then I was with him for another year, And then I looked around at my life and I was like, well, I moved to Austin. It's working out fine. And then I asked him to marry me. And he said yes. And
Oh,
we got married
wow.
real quick. And that was 10 years ago.
Okay.
Um,
10 years ago.
yeah, actually, I asked him if he wanted to marry me a couple months before I started my YouTube channel. And in a way, I feel like I knew I was going to start doing something different with my life. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to like cement the other parts in stone. Like
Yeah.
just be like, "Do you want to like marry me?" And we've talked about this more recently, me and him, because we are separated. And pretty much like I don't see us getting back together at all. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like looking back at how everything started, I think we just jumped into a bad situation and thought like I wasn't a fully written character yet.
Yeah.
And I got married July 2012. I started my channel May 2012. So nothing with my channel even took off until a couple years later. And I already have these all this
Yeah.
stuff had changed in my life and I got back. I was no and because I wasn't drinking or partying anymore, I was working, I had kids. That's when I started to go through this thing of being like, I'm a very spiritual person.
Mm.
And he wasn't, he just was never. And he didn't even
Was this when you had your Saturn
well, I had
return?
my Saturn return when I started my channel. It was after my Saturn return when
Okay.
I started to realize. It was like my Saturn return was so heavy that I couldn't even process anything until it was over. And then
Mm.
my entire 20s was processed basically. And I sat there being like, I've been running away for 10 years and I hit a wall. And I would ask him things like, like about me in the church, and he'd be like, no. And you're like, that's weird that you're my husband and you don't know anything about this stuff. I could bring
Mhm.
up names of people and you've never heard of them. And I'm like, how come we've never talked about this? And I was like, because I didn't want to talk about it. It was like this little area of
Yeah.
my brain that I would revisit on my own that I shoved way back there. And
Yeah.
when it started to pop out, which was actually weirdly last summer, and that's when I realized I needed to get a divorce. It was like my
Yeah.
entire life was like, "You did the wrong thing, Alyssa." And I was like, "Okay, I see that. I see that I did that."
And then you moved, well, you're living alone now. Well, with your kids.
No, so I live in my studio, which is a garage, and I'm separated by a yard, and my husband and my kids live in the house.
Interesting
Yeah.
setup.
I am the major breadwinner. Like I make all the money. I do all
Okay.
this stuff. I'm the only one who works. That's what major breadwinner means. But sometimes I like to explain it because sometimes I've told people this before, and they're all like, "You'll get out of this relationship. Like when you get a divorce, you can go live on somebody's couch." And I'm like, "I literally pay for the house. Can you guys just like calm down and telling me what I should do in the middle of a divorce? Like apparently you don't know what this is
Yeah.
like." But
Mhm.
people don't really know what a divorces look like when the female is the one who makes the money. I don't
Mm.
know, like it's weird. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't want to leave anybody this we're not leaving anything high and dry, and I don't want to sever something that
Yeah.
like there's a lot of emotions and a lot of problems and a lot of things in our relationship that are like, personal and everything like that. Um that are a symptom of what we did, of what I did. And because I'll take the blame for a lot of the reasons why I got into this, and he can take the blame for his stuff, but that's his own story, right? And
Mm.
so when I look at it, I'm like, I want to be able to walk out, just walk out. There doesn't need to be a big explosion. There was when I mentioned it to him in the beginning. I was like, no, I need to be separated. And he was like, sure you do. And I was like, no, this is fucked up. Like I can't do this. I'm dying here. And I had gained so much weight. As soon as I moved out into the garage, and that was 8 months ago, I literally live on this couch. Uh, I lost 40 pounds in like a couple months because it was just like weight I was holding on to, just being depressed and
Mm,
all of that. And then I I got my like life back. I started running again. And all of these things that I realized that I suppressed to be in a relationship with somebody who wasn't good for me, like came into play.
mm,
And in the scheme of things, he says that he likes me still. Um which is a lie. Because if he liked me still, um, he would have liked me then. Like, I don't know. It's
right,
it's one of those
yeah.
things where I'm like, whatever, okay, fine. That's funny. You don't. I don't you just don't want this whatever this is to like end. That's fine. I'm not gonna talk about it. 'Cause it's a weird thing because I don't want to sound like a brat. And I know when you start to bring up things of like relationships, people are like, well, this is going on and this is going on. I'm like,
Uh-huh,
very,
uh-huh,
very it's a very deep situation, but it's also not that complicated.
yeah,
Um, we should never have gotten married, but we did because I was running away from a lot of things. And um, yeah, but I gave him my ring back a couple days ago, and that was a really big deal because I had not really thought about it. I don't wear it. So I was like, it's just a ring. And to be honest, we both paid for it. I don't know. Like, we lived together, we were both working, had the money in the bank account, and we bought the ring for me. So what it never really held this like special significance, but
mm,
I picked it up and it felt really fucking heavy and I handed it to him and then I thought I was going to throw up. I was like, "Oh my god, did I just like cuz objects, they have a lot of power."
yeah,
And that was my that ring, it's ownership in a sense. It's your chain. And so it's not like 12 years of being with him. And 12
yeah,
years perfection.
definitely.
I At the end of my 12th house perfection, I told him I wanted to be separated. So I went into my first house perfection and I met him 12 years ago. So I met him during my
Oh,
first house
wow.
perfection. So he was a complete, yeah, it was. And we both got a lot out of it. And that's
Okay.
the thing.
The cycle was complete.
Uh, yeah, I spent like all last year crying.
Yeah. I feel you too. When I get like when I'm getting over something, when I'm heartbroken, I just like go into like a different mode and I just cry over the littlest things and
Yeah.
post sad TikToks.
Oh my god. I'm like, I would be able to work sometimes, like, when I was running away from the pain, and I could just like, "Yeah, I got this," and I'd put stuff out, and then all of a sudden I'd hit a wall and I'd be like, "I just don't know what to do," like, and I would just be, like, laying there unable to, like, move or get up, and I wouldn't even be sometimes I wouldn't even be crying, I would just be laying there and
Yeah.
being like, "What's your problem, Melissa? Like, get up." And it's like, I don't know, you're going through a major transformation." And I remember someone didn't get their reading in time, um, a client, and they said, "You need to be a better, like, business owner and a better professional." And she's like, "Don't even blame your divorce because I know it's not that." And I was like, "Fuck you." Just like, you go fuck
Y-
yourself so hard. You take the reading that never was and you shove it up your ass because fuck. Moved out of Austin within the 12-year cycle, got married, had kids, started YouTube, all of this stuff. And it was very much separate from the church energy, right? And it's funny because obviously that last 12-year cycle before wasn't just the church and then it ended. I didn't like leave my church at the end of the 12-year cycle. There were the 4 years that followed, right? Actually, let me try to think. Yeah, because it was the 3 years, because 23 is when you're in your 12th year, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And the funniest thing was that guy that I was telling you about. He was gone on this trip for a really long time. So he rented out his house. And I hadn't talked to him in a long time. And since I hadn't talked to him, I was like shut out of this life. But I was talking to I got I can't talk. Okay, so I ran this marathon. It was my second Chicago marathon, and I didn't do a good job running it because I wasn't training super heavily and I was kind of smoking a lot of cigarettes. And if you're a runner and you smoke cigarettes, you can get a lot of muscle cramping. You think it's just your lungs, but my lungs were pretty young and able to do it, but my muscles cramped, and that was a big problem. So about like mile 5, I had a huge cramp in my thigh muscle, and it made my marathon take like 6 hours, which is not good. I wanted it to be like about 4 hours. So it was 6 hours of basically like slow running. And because of that, I got bronchitis. So
Oh.
that was a long, drawn out story. Anyway, but I got bronchitis. And so I was like unable to leave my house, which is a very 12th house perfected year type of thing, to be honest, because at that point, you're burning all your ego needs, right? And in the 12th house year, I was um like I couldn't work. That was where I spent a lot of my stuff. Like I couldn't make money. I almost got fired because they didn't believe I had bronchitis because I partied too much, and they were like, "No, she's just been like on a bender." And I was like, "That's crazy. Like I've been literally out for a month." Um, and I was just stuck in my own thoughts, and so I started to write about my situation with the church and everything. And this guy who was friends with my sister but was a little bit older, so he he was like, "Alyssa, you're like my age for some reason." I don't know. He came to visit and he started talking to me, and it turns out he was a this is a lot of extra information. It's going to be funny in a second because he was a literary he got his master's in like literature, and so he knew how to write, and he was
Yeah.
like he was like a novelist type of
That's kind of
guy.
hot though.
Yeah, and he had his like appeal. He had a professor vibe, and he was a Gemini.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I enjoyed his company a lot, right? And because I'm very like I wanted to be a writer and all this stuff. So I was like, I have all this time. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I let him read it, and he he says a couple things to me. One of them he's like, "You tell way too many details that are not important to the story." And I was like, "Oh, okay, here we are. I ran a marathon and then got bronchitis. This is all about this crazy thing that I did. It's the story is leading up." So I learned that, and he goes, "You're telling stories about characters in your past that don't matter. Who are the characters that matter to you?" And I was like, "I don't know. They all matter." And he goes, "Well, maybe you haven't given yourself enough distance from the situation to write about it," which astrologically makes sense because when you're in your 12th house year trying to make sense of what happened, it doesn't. You're mainly losing. You got to clear the
Mhm.
information more so than try
Yeah.
to expound on it or something.
Mm.
Um, and so I was like, okay. And then he saw that I was writing about that guy that I was in love with. And he said, why do you love this guy? And I was like, because he's amazing. He's awesome. He he's like the reason faces were invented. And he's all like I would tell everybody that that was my thing about him. I was like, he's the reason faces were invented. Like his have you seen his face? You guys are asking me why I like him, and I should just be like his face. There's a lot more to it. It was a lot deeper, but I at the time I was just like thought of the most beautiful person in the world, and I thought of this guy's face. It was like what would come to me. And then I would think about how like I liked all of his personality traits, but I was so angry at the situation, I was unable to handle it or process it. So he was just down to this face that would haunt my dreams, right? And he told me his name was James. He was like, he's not that great, Alyssa. Like you could have somebody who's like way better. And I was like, oh, like you, whatever. We were we were like friends. We weren't dating, but he did help me like through my bronchitis. Like he just was with me a lot and worked on writing. Very almost like the beginning to a romantic movie, if you think about it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
she's trying to get herself away from all of this pain, and she's sick, and he hangs out with her while she's sick.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, me too. It's really beautiful, right? So, he he texts me one day, after like I'm a lot better, and he said, "Hey, Alyssa, you'll never guess what, but my brother just rented this guy's house." And I was like, "Oh," and he goes, "So you want to come over?" And he used the love the love that I had for this other guy to get me over to his house because I was like, yeah, I haven't been to his house in like 3 years or something. I would love to go over to his house and and so we had this little like party in the basement of his house, but it was just me and him because it was like a date. And so me and James, the Gemini, were hanging out in the basement. We watched 2 movies and drank a bunch of whiskey, and we smoked clove cigarettes in the in the garage. And it was very, very cold out. And we put it was like cold and dry. We put the cigarettes into a garbage can. So I'm wasted. We pass out. I had to go to work the next day. And I get out of work and he's calling my phone. He goes, Alyssa, I need you to come here back to the house. And I was like, why? And he's like, because I am in the front yard. It's snowing. I have no clothes on. I'm in my underwear and the house is on fire. And I was like, what? And I thought it was like shitting me. And he's like, no, the house is on fire. So my other friend was supposed to meet me out and hang out. So I called her and I drove back to the house and I sat in front of this house of this man that I love, this house. And I was like, how the fuck did this get on fire? This is like
Oh
really,
my
really
god.
weird. And James is like sitting with me and like, and they're, we're watching as like the whatever, everybody's spraying it with water. The water hoses. It's like I was there. I don't even remember what they're called. Yeah. So we're watching them spray with the water hose. It was like on fire. A cat died. Sorry for anybody with triggers about cats. He saved one cat. The other cat ran and hid because that's what cats do. And he died. So, no one else was in there but James. And James is in the car with me. And then my other friend, and her name is more common. So I'm not going to say her name, but no, less common. She thinks James is hilarious at this point. And I don't even realize this, but they're like hitting it off watching this fire burn down the house. And I'm unsure of this thing with James, but I'm like, I'm into it, even though I'm also like, I also love this other guy, but this other guy doesn't love me. So like, just move on from it,
Yeah.
Alyssa. It's been fucking years. Like, you keep running away from it, but it keeps coming back to you. And then, so the next day we find out that we burned down the house with the cigarettes. It was because we were outside smoking cigarettes that the fucking house burned down. And I was like, did I just burn down his house? Like,
Oh my god.
and I was like,
Jesus Christ.
I didn't do it on purpose. Like, I'm not an arson. And like, I'm not on
Yeah.
trial. Like, it was an accident. And then I like tried really hard to forget about it. But the craziest thing was he made me watch a movie that night and I brought over my favorite movie to watch. And I had to go back and get it like a week later when the flooding in the basement was over because when they spray a house that's on fire with water, it floods the basement. So the basement
Yeah.
was flooded, it had to unflood. And we went down there and the movie was ruined. But the movie was called Thank You for Smoking. That was the movie I brought over. There are a billion movies. It's not even my very favorite, but I pretended it was because I loved it so much at the time.
Uh-huh.
It's called Thank You for Smoking. I burned down the house when I was smoking, but then I walked up the stairs and 2 crazy things happened. One, I realized that my friend was there and I didn't invite her because she started hooking up with him. Like,
Uh-huh.
I introduced them. They're
Yeah,
married
yeah.
now, which is
Oh god.
great for that,
The
but
story of my life.
right? Um, yeah, I was devastated, but I was so, like, upset with everything that it was another thing I just ran from, I guess, and then I walked up the stairs, and then I saw the guy whose house it was, his mom and his girlfriend, and they were there to, like, survey the damage while he was gone, and I was like, "Alyssa, like, what are you even doing? Like, what is your thing? Like, the one thing you're holding on to in this world that you live in this area in Chicago, like you ran away from the church, but somehow you're still holding on to this guy. Like you accidentally burned his house down." And actually, I don't know if admitting this, can you like sue me if you were to find? I don't, just kidding. I don't. You can't prove it was me. I just admitted it right here. But And then I saw his like girlfriend and his mom, and I'm like, there's nothing here for me anymore. And then I looked at my friend James, who was like pursuing me heavily, and he's like hooking up with my friend, and I was just like, oh, okay. And that was like the biggest moment, I think, when I just was like in my brain, that the 12th year of that cycle was like, it's over. I have to go. I don't know how I'm going to go yet. I don't know where I'm going to go. But I went right back into like working at the restaurant again, partying again, trying to just get my shit together. And then I met my husband, um, like in my first house perfection. So when the cycle started over, but that last
Mm,
part of the 12th house, it was like a few months, February to October after like the house burning down. But that house burning down was like a huge deal for me because it was like the last thing. And then I was friends with him on Facebook. And like later on, and I remember
uh-huh.
like having a little bit of a freak out attack because he said he was living in his house again or something. And someone commented and said, you need to tell people to like no more smoking in the garage. Like someone said that, and I was like, do they, is that really like the cause? Like, is that real? Like, I wasn't like, I
No.
was just like, holy shit. And then I was like, nope, you know, block that shit out. Like, is that what it is? And so they're mad.
Wait, I have the funniest relatable story because I had a fire in my childhood room growing up. Um, because I had a lamp and I would put the curtain over the lamp to like dim the light.
Yeah.
But yeah, and what happened was the curtain caught flame because or like it was burning
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit, right? Um and like I told my mom and then she checked on it and it was fine. And then we like left the room and then we came back and the whole curtain was on fire
Oh my God.
and it was
That's really
scary. It
scary.
was scary.
But oh my God, it's like
And
very, very fires are really scary.
no, they're very
I
scary.
yeah.
Um no, no, no. And then we ran and called 911 and all this stuff and I was like a
Yeah.
mess. I don't know, it was just very dramatic, I guess. But it's interesting because when they like came out with the results, like they looked at the situation and tried to find the cause of the fire. They said it was an electrical
Mm.
fire, but it was really my fault.
Well, I think like in my brain after I was like, no, it wasn't the cigarettes. Like, there's no way. And even when I got the movie out and I was like, thank you for smoking. That's weird. I was like, no, it's not that. It must have been the faulty wires of the fridge that was out there, you know? It should have been an electrical fire. And
Yeah.
I think I did tell myself like that's what it was. It was below freezing. Like it was so cold in Chicago. It gets very cold, you know. And there shouldn't be a fridge out there. So I was like, that's the problem. But when I saw that comment years later on the Facebook page, I was like, what the fuck? Like, is that like the ruling? Is that what it was? That because I'm like, I didn't mean to. If anybody ever relayed it or saw it, I didn't. It was not on
Yeah.
purpose. It was an accident. It was
No, of
years ago.
course.
Statute of limitations
Yeah.
for prosecuting are long gone. But it is
Yeah.
watching that fire, that was just like that's the only big fire I've ever seen, and it was crazy. And just like the
Yeah.
the fire like busting out the windows and stuff. And also seeing my friend like literally in his boxer shorts, like in the snow with the fire behind him on his front lawn. And I was like,
I could still smell the burnt
yeah,
house in my nose. I could smell it. That smell will never go
never
away.
will go away. It's just crazy.
Okay, wait. So let's dial back to kind of like the Divine
Mhm.
Venus.
Mm.
um, so you got on YouTube, right? How'd you get on YouTube, or how did that all start?
So I was doing the astrology stuff. I was being drunk. I moved to Austin. I spent a year like trying to fit in with like a new crowd of people, new restaurant people. And life like was a little bit different because actually funny, Chris was my boss, and when we moved to Austin, he was like they offered him a different position as a manager of one of their other restaurants. And I was like, "Well, why don't I go to work at that one with you?" And he told me he didn't want to work with me anymore, which it's a kind of a red flag, but I'm used to that from guys. And then now I look back at it and I'm like, dude, I should have just been like, fuck everybody. Like, honestly, like when it comes to my story and what I want people to know is that if you don't feel like that great love, you don't need it. Right? Like I told myself after I burned down this guy's house and I saw his girlfriend with his mom that like and that then I saw my friend just hook up with another person that love must not be real and it must be fake and it's stupid and you should just go date the next guy who gives you attention. Like honestly in my brain that's where it went because I was like none of this makes sense. Um I don't get it at all. I don't understand life. And I was very like because I was too busy running, you know? And I think that's what a lot of us do.
Uh-huh.
We're doing our thing and then we run from it when it gets a little bit tough and then we don't know where we are. We're all disjointed upside down and backwards. So in my brain, I was being super logical about that great love doesn't exist. But and so I ignored a ton of problems within my relationship. And I looking back, I'm like, even now, I'm like, I'm not trying to like get with people now. Like I'm single and I like that. I want to really explore that. Like and unless I felt that great love again, which I never did. So it's like if I never do again, I'll be okay. But I'm not going to just
Yeah.
jump into what I did before because I did all that. And I see a lot of people now, they're
Yeah.
like, well, I just want to find love and have children and everything. And I'm like, that's great. And I did that and I get it. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, like realistically.
Yeah.
But I would say that is it worth it? I don't think so. I mean, I do. Like, I don't want to, like, and I don't
Yeah.
know how to say that, like, correctly, to be honest, because I love that I have my children. But I'm like, what if I did it a different way? What's that timeline look like? And what if I did everything I was supposed to karmically? It makes sense, right? But if I could share with other people that you don't have to go that route, like just
Yeah.
because you can't find love doesn't mean that you're like something's wrong with you. It's really difficult to find. When you see people getting together, they're not getting together because of love. They're getting together because they want to get married and have kids and they're done being single. It has literally nothing to do with love. And so if that's what you're going for, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
A-
Yeah. You're right.
And I mean, it's like I've lived it because I'm like, that's not love when your boyfriend that you move across the country for is like, I don't want to work with you anymore. And you don't want to work with me because I'm too anti-authoritative. And that's an interesting thing, right? So that's kind of a long thing to get to, but he didn't like that I would challenge him as the boss at the job and that I challenged all the managers so they'd always be like, "Check your girl." Because I'd be like, "I'm not doing this because this is like, legal, and you work in restaurants and stuff, they make you do illegal things all the time. And I don't even understand. Like
Okay.
like they'll make you work well, in my brain it's illegal. Like they'll make you work longer hours than you feel you're like that violate your human rights. Here I am like,
Oh, just a little bit, like,
yeah, they just push your like human
yeah.
rights a little bit and then you're supposed to just be okay with it. And I'm just never okay with it. I have a people want to call it a personality disorder. I just don't like when people, I wasn't going to allow someone to fire me for being a slut when I was a virgin. I was like going to
Yeah,
let somebody violate
it's
my human rights. So,
it's just standing up for
yeah.
yourself.
So anyway, I'm in I'm in Austin. I'm working at this restaurant with nobody I know and I'm trying to like get friends and I'm doing that and I feel like I made a mistake, but then I get friends to drink with. Start drinking. I'm bored as fuck. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I just moved across the country and I don't know what I'm doing. And it was right before my Saturn return. It was a year before when I really started to pay attention to it. And then it was like 4 or 5 months before my return started. And I went on YouTube. And it was a good moment for me because it was the first step back in the right direction of my life, right? But I didn't do it with any spiritual intent. I was very much
Yeah.
I was for those years, you could see me falling away from any form of spiritual feelings from 20 to 23, right? And then 24,
Okay.
5, and 6, I started my YouTube channel when I was 26. I was I was just no more. Like there's nothing for me there. And I think that we can talk about this later on your channel even about being an astrology troll and how people did comment a lot to me in the beginning about how I was like desecrating the beautiful art of astrology and the spiritual presence of it because I was like,
Mhm.
like I was like an animal.
Mm.
Like, an animal is just,
Yeah.
a human without spiritual energy. And I mean, that's people are gonna want to cancel me for that because animals are made of spiritual energy, whatever you want to say. But like in my mind, I
I
was a
get you.
feral
Yeah, I
being.
get what you're saying.
I was very like I just was raw and feral, and I did not care. And I
0 degree
what?
energy. So 0 degree
Yes,
energy.
and it was I feel like I needed to do that, and I think it needed to be documented. That's where I was at. I think it's really important because I feel as though when you get into spiritual energy, you have to understand that you can be anywhere. Like as spiritual as I was in the past before then, and as I have become again, and I know my purpose, um, you can do things without knowing your purpose that are still aligned with you. You just have to do them. And there's room for everybody within like a church, astrology, whatever it is. You can be the biggest agnostic or atheist or whatever and still love astrology. And that will kick off some form of human existence in your life, And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what my early videos did. I think they helped awaken like kids who were pretty much closed off to that spiritual part of themselves because it was funny,
Yeah.
it was stupid, and they could laugh and they could be like get into it. And then as I got pregnant when I started my moon sign videos, which is very interesting. And I got more spiritual. Like I just started to align with that like mothering energy. And
Yeah.
then it started to evolve. And after my second child was born, because they're less than 2 years apart, I I remember learning a lot more because on YouTube, videos started popping up on like how to be more spiritual. There was a lot of yoga stuff and um, tarot readings and connecting to your higher self and law of attraction. And all that was starting to come up at the same time. And I wasn't into that at all. I was into
Yeah.
astrology. I was like, everything else was stupid because everything else was a gateway drug to that God shit I was not into. And I was like, nah. But then my
Yeah.
friend was getting into it and she's like, do you talk to your higher self on a pendulum or whatever? And I was like, no, but I want to. I was like, because I'm kind of stuck right now. Like I'm stuck in my feral
Yeah.
energy. I'm starting to see that it doesn't make any sense for me anymore. And I don't know what
Yeah.
decisions to make. And I remember when I was younger, I used to pray and it helped me. And I've done a lot more in my life without praying, without being um into any of this like in depth in any way. But I think it's time that I experiment with that in a different sense. So I went down the occultish dark arts way, but pretty soon just felt like I was talking to God every day. Like it pretty
Mm.
rapidly like got me back into my energy. And the first thing that like when I would talk to my higher self and then I would start talking to God and I could feel like there's like a difference in that energy, but like my higher self wanted to get closer to God to become more like that. It was just like it's like a growth process, but I
Mm.
was watching it because I observe
Mm.
everything and I was like, this is weird. My higher self is like this and God is this energy. And what are all these feelings and like
Yeah.
where do they exist and where do they line up? This is confusing, but I'm into it because I'm a Pisces rising. And I remember God just was like, you need to stop everything. You're incredibly unhappy. Um, this is nothing like what you wanted to do when you were a kid. And you need to move to California and go do what you wanted to be when you were a kid. And I was like, oh, I want to be an actor. Like, yeah, go do that. Um, so I quit astrology. Like I quit YouTube and moved to California. And when I did that, I fucked up my California liaison because um, I was Alyssa Sharpe. I was quitting, so I was like, "Hey, no, I got married. My last name's not Sharp. It's Trahan. That was my husband's name." I was like, "I'm Alyssa Trahan now. Um, I don't do astrology anymore. I want to be an actress. Like, I'm just done with it." Like, I threw in the towel. I was like, "I'm like I'm
Okay.
very like all or nothing." So I was like, "If I'm gonna quit, it's not like with the assumption I'm coming back. Otherwise, like, who knows what I'll do? I'll keep my foot in the door, right?" And I felt like I just needed to walk away. That it had run its
Yeah.
course. That I did it for 5 straight years. I never took a break. I did it so often, and I didn't see much from it. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I was telling you earlier, like 2015 was a big year for me. I was like the biggest astrologer, and even at that time, the biggest astrologer had
Yeah.
40,000 YouTube subscribers. That wasn't a lot, but people
Mhm.
were talking about me on Reddit forums and Lipstick Alley and all these other forums and talking about, "Does Alyssa deserve this?" And it was kind of a big ego thing for me, but it was
Yeah.
also when 2016 rolled around, I was just depressed and over it. So in 2017, it's really when I started just to be much more spiritual and just follow that. And I was amazed because I knew I was like, I can't make decisions anymore. I'd much rather higher power help me in some way. Like I was just like on my knees wanting a higher power. And that higher power told me to end everything. And I was like, okay. So everyone thought I was fucking crazy.
And
um,
yeah, you
they
quit.
like, what?
You quit,
I
right?
quit. It was like people were like, "Are you nuts? Like, are you crazy? Did you have a religious conversion?" Because I was like, "God made me do it." And looking back, I'm like, I went all or nothing because that's the type of person I am. And God told me to quit. I felt it in my heart. I was like, then I'm going to go all out and quit. But when I fucked it up was the guy that offered an easy way to California. The guy that offered the easy way to California, he was mad that I quit because the only reason he offered me this way was because I was going to help him join the astrology community area, like and make some stuff with him, and like I was going to be his astrology liaison, and he was using my name, and I told him like, and he said he was going to be my manager and help me with my career at like in acting, and he had some contacts, but it was all a lie, of course, and he was just like exploiting me as like Alyssa Sharpe, and I ran out of money really quickly, and then he was really upset with me, and his girlfriend was really upset with me too. And she was like, it was like a very like hostile thing, so I had no place to go. I had my family, and I was like, okay, we got to go. And we went back and helped my parents move from Texas back to Illinois and lived with them for
Uh-huh.
about 4 months, and then Um, after that, it got really toxic with my family, and we lived in San Diego for a little while, and then finally made it back to LA and was living like we were living in hotels. And I was just making money through a business partner that I still had. But when I started my Rose line, which we were talking about earlier, um,
Yeah.
that was a big thing. I started to do that. Like when I realized that the acting thing wasn't gonna pan out, I even was working with like a production company on this poison ivy idea that I had. All these things, but they were just like it wasn't right and it wasn't working out the way. So I just stopped and felt like all of my spiritual journey that I had been on was leading to something. And I spent like 2 months just working on this rose line concept of like this thing that I've had in my head since I started astrology was that how do you type personalities with an algorithm? Because I could lump people together, and then I would look at their astrology charts and I would be like, their sun, moon, and rising aren't even the same. And that's how
Yeah.
people disprove astrology. And that irritated me
Mm.
because I'd be like, well, you can be the same because it's about how those energies line up with each other. So what I felt in my, like what God was telling me was like, you can find this. You can find this this way to find a deeper meaning to their life existence and their purpose, and this energy that you can see. And so I worked on that, and my business partner was supposed to help me with it financially, but she wasn't a good business partner, and she got really upset that I was the one doing the concept and she was the one monetarily providing for me while I did it. So she just removed her
Okay.
funds, and I was like,
Okay.
yeah, she just decided, she's like, "Oh, I don't have money." And I was like, "What?" And then she just like,
I thought this was a project.
yeah, she just,
Isn't it going to result in like benefit for us at the
yeah,
end?
and nope, she just put in the middle of it. I was like, "Okay." So I I had to like launch it early. So I launched it on Patreon, and this was before I went back to YouTube and everything. I was still like Alyssa
Yeah.
Trahan. I had this rose line, but I didn't have investor or anything anymore. So I created a Patreon. I went back to YouTube and I said, "Hey guys, if you're still interested in me, here's my Patreon." And I
Uh,
was able to make like 1,000 a month off of that, and which was great because I got evicted. And the day I got evicted, I we were moving out of the house. Like, we got evicted like with the courts and everything, and they let us move out on New Year's
uh,
Eve, 2018, 2019, that New Year's Eve. So it was New Year's Eve, we're moving out. We get everything into the truck, and then we're putting it in storage because we have nowhere to go. And I'm like, fuck. But I have Patreon, so I'm like, we can go back into hotels, we'll figure it out. And then I'll start telling like readings to my patrons because that's all I had. I was like, we're yeah.
hey.
And like, we're gonna make it work this time. It's gonna be okay. And I was walking down the fucking truck thing, and I just tripped on my left ankle and overcorrected on my right, and it snapped in half, and I broke 3 bones in my ankle, and we were halfway moved in. I screamed so loud. I still remember like that sound of the snap.
No.
And I was like, "What just fucking happened?" And we spent 3 days in the hospital. I still have a $70,000 um, hospital bill because they had to put surgery
Jesus
on my
Christ.
ankle. Anyway, and I so like was like, right now I'm in the hospital. This is insane. And while I was in there, while I was in surgery, Chris took the kids to the mall, and we were behind a month on the because we got evicted, and so we had no money, so we got behind a month on the van, and there was a call for it to be repoed. And while he was at the mall with the kids and I'm in surgery knocked out, the car got repoed with all of our stuff
Oh my
that we had. So we had
God.
all of our
What?
like suitcases in the back of the van, and
They just take the
they took
whole
the whole
thing?
thing. We didn't know where it was. So he called and he's freaking out, and I'm on drugs. I just got out of the surgery, and I was like, "Get the fuck over here." I was like, "What are you calling me for?" It was a pretty upsetting moment in my life because I was like, "This whole thing
Yeah.
is on me right now, and I'm on drugs." Like, I was just like, "I don't know, and I can't walk." So we came back. I had one outfit, um, and we couldn't get our stuff out of repo because we didn't have any money because we had to pay for the hotels. And we just were living in hotels, and I had 1 month of like I was doing readings in the hotel. Um, Sometimes we wouldn't get readings, so we'd have to check out and wait.
Oh my
And I was on
God.
crutches.
That is
We had no
wild.
car. Yeah, it was crazy.
I could totally imagine myself doing that.
Yeah,
coming up coming up with the most creative ideas to make money
it was
somehow.
it was literally like insane. And then I like every night, it's like when you get to that point too, it's like every night we prayed. And that was the night too, like because I was very like had been in this very spiritual place for 2 years now, right? And at that point, Chris kept asking, like, when are you just going to realize that this your God maybe isn't real? Like, shit's not working out and stuff. And I was like, because he promised some things and they already happened. You got to have faith. Like, we're at this point where you have to have faith. And I like when everything was like crazy, I was just like, "Hey, I think we need to pray together every night because I can't do this on my own. I'm physically doing it all on my own, but I just need to know that I have like some support." And so we just prayed as like with the kids every night. And some nights we had money. I got pretty addicted to wine because you can like I would sell like a reading and I would make enough money to like get 2 nights in the hotel, which was great, and a bottle of wine. So it was just like get 2 nights and a bottle because you're just like, this is or 2 bottles.
Did you have days when you didn't have a place to stay? Like,
Yeah, we would there were 2 nights or 2 no, 3 times. We had to leave the hotel at 11 because I didn't have money for another extra night to stay to extend it. And we would go to Target or the mall and walk around, and I would sit in a wheelchair, because I had to be on my phone and I had crutches. So I would, like, sit in a wheelchair and I would be trying to figure out how to make money. Uh, and I would sit there and be like, "I'm doing this," and I would use Instagram, and I was like, um and the big thing was when I actually made a video about it a little bit, and people were like, "How come you didn't tell us that this was happening? Like, you could have had a GoFundMe or whatever." And I was like, "Ew." I don't know, like, why, but and I don't like, I'm not against anybody to have that. It just never felt right in my like, it never even felt like an option. Like, I was gonna go on YouTube and be like, "Hey, guys, I'm homeless. Can you help me?" And I'm not even knocking anybody who does that. Like, I think that's probably a smart move. Um, but it was something that I was just like, "No, you can do it, Alyssa. Like, you can do it." And then, um, out of nowhere, my sister goes, "Hey, I'm moving into this house. Um, if you can pay me money, I'll let you and the kids like stay in one of the rooms." And I was like, "Okay." And we had literally like 3 days left of our stuff in repo before they were gonna toss it, like throw it away. Like, 'cause I'm still wearing the same one outfit I had, by the way. Like, I just wore one outfit for this entire month and I'm trying to like whatever. Um, and we got the stuff out of repo because I moved in with my sister. And then I was with her for a little while and I was paying her money for rent. And that's when I started to be like, "Okay, I'm not super stable right now, but I'm stable enough. Like, what am I going to do next?" And I was like, "I need to go back on YouTube." And that was 2019 and I went back on YouTube in the summer,
mm,
and it was right at the same time that the landlord of my sister like really liked me in kind of a weird way, and offered me one of like the houses. He's like, "Yeah, just pay me in cash and like no credit check or anything," because obviously we like got evicted and had a car repoed. Um, and we got a house. And I've my sister moved pretty soon. She didn't like the situation, and now, like, I have a studio space, I have a bigger house, but I work like, I it's for my landlord, like, and he lives right next to us, and, like, so since 2019, I've had a very good situation, right? And
yeah.
it's grown and it's expanded, and even when I was in the, when my sister lived in this house over there, I'm pointing at it, you can't see it, so I don't know why I'm pointing at it, but I went viral on YouTube, and I had already reached 100K December 2018, but they didn't send me my plaque, and so I tried to be like, "Hey, where's my plaque?" And they were like, "Oh, there's some problem here.
Yeah.
Maybe you did something bad." And I was like, "Did I?" But apparently I was shadow banned.
Ah,
And, they
oh,
unshadow banned me or something, but they didn't say it like that. I
huh.
got the plaque sent, and then I went viral, and when I went viral, I gained, like, 50,000 subscribers in, like, a month or 2, and because of that, it was like, "Oh, it's time. Like, it's time to go back on YouTube. Like, I'll pick up this momentum," and I did, but you can kind of also see that my videos in 2019 are not necessarily like me. They're kind of what was popular at the time because I didn't know what to do and I was trying to make money. And then in 2020 was the weird era of Alyssa where I called myself Alyssa, but it was a very weird era where I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. So I was a little angry all the time. That's when I called out Natalia Taylor. um,
Yeah.
I was like trying to find. I was up at night, like looking at what happened while I was gone, and realizing that like my entire channel was just siphoned for content. And I was like, while I was homeless, while I was
Yeah.
fucking dying, like while I had no money, while I was dealing with like people taking advantage of situations and all of this other stuff. Are you kidding me? And also at that same time, there's a country singer that no one's ever heard of named Alyssa Trahan who literally sued me for my name. And I was like, huh? And I was like, I can't go back.
Excuse
Yeah, for
me.
my, like, Alyssa Trahan name, like, my name that I had changed it to, and
Yeah.
so I was like, "Do I have to go back to Alyssa Sharpe?" And everyone's like, "Go back to Alyssa Sharpe," and I was like, "No, I quit that for a reason." And so that's when and Alyssa Sharpe, all of my handles that I had Twitter, Alyssa Sharpe, Instagram, Alyssa Sharpe, they were all gone with by other Alyssa Sharpe, so I was like, I'm not coming back on as, like, Alyssa Sharpe official, and so I had to change my name to The Divine Venus, which is kind of a
It
it's a catchy name, and none of like,
is.
even in 2020, none of the Twitter like, all the handles were free and available, and I think that's kind of, like,
Huh.
like, a little,
Yeah.
man, I'm talking a lot, what's it
No,
okay.
you're touching all the points.
I'm so
You're
used to just
touching on all
talking
the
to a
points.
camera, it's, like, not even an interview,
No,
yeah,
I mean, this
it
is
is,
your
I guess,
story.
but like I said, I guess. The big thing was, like, I felt like the Divine Venus belonged to me because I was able to take it. Um, and then it was summer 2021 when I added Sharp back. Like, it took me a long time because
Okay.
I think I had to cleanse that name, like, purify it because it was so feral. And so I was the Divine Venus
Yeah.
for just for a year and a half, like, with just being Alyssa, the Divine Venus, trying to figure out my footing. And I
Mhm.
started TikTok in like December, but I was like fucking around with TikTok in December of 2021. I mean 2020. And then
Yeah.
2021 hit and I was like, I kind of figured out how to use TikTok. And then all of a sudden all these people came and they were like,
Uh.
"Are you Alyssa Sharp? I haven't seen you since I was like 12." And it hit me
Yeah.
in those moments that I could like Alyssa Sharpe would be okay. Like I found my people again. And it also was interesting because
Mm.
I had lost everybody and they
Right.
were all young and they all went to TikTok. So when I refound them, it was like I refound a little purpose. Like there's my kids, they're all grown up.
Yeah.
And then realized
Yeah.
too like that there are a lot of tarot readers and astrologers on YouTube who are such dicks about TikTok astrology. And that made me just want to do it more. Because I just like
Yeah.
to do things that are against what other people say you should do all the time. Anyway, now in
Same.
2019 too, I forgot that's when I started my other podcast where I all of the knowledge I collected while I was doing Roseline and when I was at my church, all of that stuff, I just started putting it into my podcast. So I actually started my
Yeah.
podcast before I went back on YouTube, which is interesting as well. I was like
Okay.
I guess in this sense, I was trying to get it right. Like,
Yeah, that's how
yeah,
I felt with this podcast. I was trying to like
mhm,
just well, in a different way, get it right. I was just trying to figure out like what is my edge? What
yeah,
is my perspective? Like
yeah, because
where do I stand for?
we can all
And
fuck around
then
with
yeah.
astrology, but, like, yeah, what do you stand for? I think that's important.
Yeah.
What do you feel
Yeah.
for you
Exactly.
that you stand for, like, with this?
I st- I stand for like an openness in terms of how people perceive you. Like I feel like in terms of especially cancel culture on social media, it it paints this person as maybe making a mistake on one thing, or like someone seeing you based on like lies that
Yeah.
one other person like put on you. And yeah, I feel like it's very limiting. There's not a lot of space for conversation. There's not a lot of space to figure out as a community how we could like work together to like solve an issue or like
Yeah,
rehab a
I like
person, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I want to bring, like I don't want to shun someone, like I
yeah,
want to understand them. Like I'm all about reform, I'm all about rehab. Like I want to have a conversation and
yeah,
construct a better way that a person
yeah,
should be
it's,
going about life.
it is amazing because well, you say that because if you're an astrologer, you've been canceled, most likely, um, because the astrology community, they're fucking pricks. They just are, and, um, from my perspective of something that I've been able to see was that, like, when I went to church, right, and I got canceled, it's very easy to get canceled at your church.
Yeah,
I had seen it before me, like, I remember this man who was gay,
right.
and, he's and I wanna say this in the sweetest way possible, he was so gay, like, very gay, had a wife, right? But, like, sweetest sweetest gay man
Obviously
ever,
gay.
nicest guy. "Hey, Alyssa," like, just in the hallway, he was such a nice man, and, I my mom had told me that, like, he, ran this, one part of the church, which was about, like, healing traumas and stuff, right? And he was such a sweet man, he was, like, so good at it, and he had been gay, but he converted. And this is like a non-denominational good church, right? Like obviously very progressive, right? Which is hard to believe after what happened to me, but even that's very progressive to like it's just crazy how not progressive it is. So he's reformed gay and he married a woman and he has kids, okay? And I never like I was gonna say, like, I'm like, what, 13 when I met this man, and I was like, "How does he have sex?" Like, I don't even know what sex is, but I'm like, he does not like his wife. Like, how did they do it? I don't know. Like, I just like couldn't even imagine because I was like, "This is what are we doing to this man?" Like, that's all I could think in my head, like in my 13-year-old brain.
Yeah.
And so when I was like 15 or 16, actually, maybe I was older, maybe my brain, I can't remember totally. I saw his wife bawling her eyes out in the hallway, and I passed by and I looked and she was getting hugged by this other woman, and this woman was gonna be like, "It's gonna be okay. He's gonna get help, whatever." Um, and then my mom told me because she worked with him, she's like, "Yeah, he was let go because he, um, I don't think it was because of gay thoughts, but it was something more like he slept with a man, probably. It was something like that, but um, and they just
Oh,
let him go like that after all the work he had put into that." Um, Made it seem like a huge problem. Like, this woman's crying over this man that she knows is gay. Um, I like my mindset on this, like, how he was basically, like, at that time, canceled from his church. This church that he gave so much love to, right? He cared so much. He wanted to help trauma survivors. Like, he was a good man and very caring, and there was nothing wrong that with
yeah.
the fact that he was gay. Nothing wrong with it. But yet he couldn't be in that position of authority unless he was pretending to be straight and married with children, right? And like I am like it's hard for me to even tell the story and I feel like I'm just like over embellishing that the whole thing because I'm like I don't want to cry about it. It makes me really sad. And I I think about it a lot and how I witnessed it before I witnessed what happened to myself. And that when you go
Yeah.
into the what?
It's the feeling of being like the audience member of someone getting canceled versus then being canceled is the
Super
trippiest feeling
trippy.
ever. And it's I feel like
Yeah.
it's a lesson that
It's
everybody should
it
go
is.
through.
I had a thing when I see other people get canceled, because sometimes I'm like, "Yeah, fucking bitch, get canceled." Like, sometimes my brain goes there, but I'm like, I've been canceled so many times, and I it's debilitating. It literally, like, and people act like you should be okay. Like, my parents could not figure out why I couldn't just get better after the thing happened with my church, because I tried for 6 months just to be good and stable, but I was like a hurricane, right? Like, and so when I realized that all of my efforts to prove that I was okay were not working, kind of like pretending that everything's fine and putting on this good face, like, I spiraled and people were like, "Alyssa, it's been months." And I'm like, "No, it to me it hasn't. To me it's still my life, and like, you guys are over the drama, but it's not drama to me. It's my fucking life, and you all took it from me. You took me like life from me." And
Yeah. Yeah, like the feeling of like me creating on TikTok before I got quote unquote canceled, such a different feeling. And I because I repost my
Mhm.
TikToks late on my Instagram, I had to go through my whole
Mm,
like cancellation period at some point, and I could see like my shine
yeah,
just like dull, or like I'm not as like expressive or fun or like as loose
yeah.
as I
You're
was
you're not.
before.
You stiffen up, like, it's a I got
Yeah.
because I was pretty badly canceled for, like, I was my hate videos were funny, and then when people were rediscovering them, I would get canceled for it, like, every once in a while. But then it was a big deal with, this one girl I took under my wing as a young she was a young astrologer, and I, like, directed people to her videos because there weren't a lot of other YouTube creators out there, and she decided to flip her shit at me and make a video saying that I literally, like, invited her to live with me, which couldn't have happened because she was living in my stepdaughter's room, who was coming to visit, and I told her to leave. Like, I was like, and I let her stay with her daughter and her cat even, and I, like, let her stay, and I kept telling her she had to leave, and she didn't wanna leave, and so because of that, she made a video about how I told her to come live with me and then kicked her out on the street, and, um and she got me fucking, like, I was canceled. Like, I remember, like, getting yelled at by people who were like, "You are such a bitch. Like, what is your problem? How could you do this?" And
I know,
I
like,
had a panic attack in Target. I was I started to forget I was gonna faint, and I ran, got some water, and, like, just, like, sat on the, or, like, laid my hands on the drinking fountain and was trying to, like, breathe in because it was all happening. And I remember, like, at the very end of it, and actually, I probably had PTSD from my church too, because that was, like, the first real time that people were, like, yelling names that weren't true of me at my face and then expecting me to apologize for it, and just feeling like your whole reputation is based on this lie now, and now you are this lie, and building you up like this horrible person so that they can purposely throw stones at you. And I was going through all of it, and then afterwards, all of my videos were very, like, I just, like, I couldn't break out of this thing, and I could feel myself get more and more depressed
yeah,
as time went on, even though it was
yeah,
a year after that would have happened or whatever. Like, I was trying to maintain my signature, "You guys," and I couldn't. It was gone, and people were like, "I
yeah,
miss the old Alyssa," and I was like, "Well, you shouldn't have fucking canceled me." Like, I don't know, like, I'm trying I
yeah, like,
I can't do it, and people are like, "You gotta stop caring what people think of you," and you're like, "You don't know what it did to me." Like, you it's not about me caring. I could sit
yeah,
here all day and be like, "I don't care, I don't care, I don't care." My body cares. It's not about my brain. It's about my heart. It's about how you broke my heart. It's about how, like, my feelings are just can't handle it. It's how my body is broken now, and you don't get it. And you do wanna, like, die, and this is actually, a thing too. When I was thinking about my this guy from my past who had to leave the church because he was gay. How at churches, because it's a spiritual thing, you have to be good. You have to be married, even if you're not anymore. Like, you could have pastors just totally separate from their spouses for years, and they would never tell the congregation. And then eventually that spouse would come back after they've sowed their wild oats or whatever, and everything would be fine, and they never tell anybody, right? Because it's all about being happily married. It's about being like fully devoted to Christ and God. It's about not being gay, not being promiscuous, not doing any of these things. And you know that that is impossible for people to be like that. And when you get into the astrology community, I think this is why there's so many cancellations that happen to us. Like, even though it's not even as big as the church is gigantic, they should have way more cancellations, but it's because people are better at pretending. But in
Yeah.
astrology, it's still a spiritual career. So people still look at you and they expect you to be all these things that they would expect a pastor or a church leader to be. But we don't expect that of ours. Fuck you,
Mm.
that's stupid. You're like, I'm I'm not like that. I'm a full human.
Yeah.
I run the span of human nature, and I none of that should matter.
Yeah.
And people still look at you and they're like, "But you're still speaking something that is spiritually, like, it's something spiritual inside of me. Therefore, I want you to be perfect." And all you have to do is mess up a little bit.
Mm.
Like, even if it's real, even if it's a real mess up, but it's just tiny, all of a sudden you're like a pervert or like um
Yeah.
a predator or
Yeah.
a dumbass. Or people are like, "I can't believe I'm so embarrassed I ever liked that person." And you're like, "Wait, what?" Or, I mean, I don't wanna bring up, somebody else someone else's story in this, but there was this girl who got super canceled on TikTok, and they literally went through all of her tweets that were just funny tweets to call her out on them,
Mm.
because she hit 1,000,000 TikTok
Mm.
followers before everybody else did. It's like, not saying that everything that she did was perfect, but neither am I, and neither is anybody. And it's like they started to turn her into a fucking predator from being somebody who might have done something problematic. And you're like, okay, we need to like figure this out because you can't be a, like a Nazi predator, horrible human being like all at once just because you said something that someone didn't like or you did something that was problematic. It's like you have to be able to separate this energy. Um, and they people can't do it. Or like
Yeah.
with the video about me, I remember like nobody wanted to get on this video and this girl's when she was talking about how awful I was and say, Alyssa has a young baby of her own. You know, it's kind of rude of you to put all of your eggs on that basket, right? Like, no one was gonna look at her and be like, "Hey, did you stop to think that maybe she couldn't take care of you because you're a grown woman with a baby and she's also a grown woman with a baby dealing with her own stuff?" Instead, Alyssa's a horrible person because she tried to help you and it wasn't enough because you needed more. And all you had to do is read in between the lines of that video. But because people already wanted a reason to hate somebody, it just became,
Yeah.
yeah,
The little
the
minions.
little minions. Sorry.
The little minions, But it's just like they, do you got to do
Mhm,
they got to do what they got to do to make themselves feel
mhm.
powerful, to have pride, Whatever. I don't take it personal. That's why I don't take it personal because it's like they need to do what
I
they need
do.
to do for their own
I think
self-satisfaction. So
I
I'm gonna
think that,
just
yeah, when
let
it
them
comes down
rock.
to it, it's like the more you get canceled though, the more people know your name, and as long as it's not real,
Yeah.
it won't tear you down. And my big thing when I tell people, like, when you get canceled, do not run away. Like, you just can't because you have
Yeah, I know. You can't
yeah,
you can't show
like, the
any
only thing
sign
that
of
I could do, like, later
weakness,
is
like
say, "Hey, this sucked," because as a teaching moment. But during the time it's happening, no, you're fucking
Yeah.
like, "Fuck you guys. Why are you obsessed with me? Get over it and keep moving on with your content."
Yo,
Yeah.
I'm posting. I'm just like every day, like just all this shit going down, and I'm just posting like about transits and stuff
It's
like that.
it is great. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care. No, but here's the thing, like, some people get canceled or
Mhm.
called out, but they fall. They can't
Yeah.
take it. They can't take the pressure, they can't take the heat, and they just hide and they
Yeah.
run away, and I've seen many
I
people
know.
just
Yeah.
disappear because of that. But
I
it's
I
hard,
feel
it's
if
very
you
hard
know
to
your
deal with, I get
purpose
that, but
is in this, you don't go. And that's a big deal because
yeah.
it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. Ask me how many people have also been doing it for 10 years. No, like, even though I quit, I did come back and I never fully left. Like I said, like, I was always hanging around in some way, shape, or form, even if it was just on Instagram. But a lot of like people literally left and they do like they're real estate agents now or and I could tell you the moments that it happened. Like I know one girl, she'd made a video on YouTube and everyone started to comment to her and assume she was going to do a whole series because she did it on one sign. And she got pissed because she was like, "Wait, no, I'm not. I never said I was gonna. I just was doing this one thing." And it upset her. And now she's a real estate agent. Like, yeah, and you're like, but at the
I'm
same time, it's like
crying.
she didn't wanna do it. It wasn't in her
I
purpose.
know.
She was
Oh,
young
yeah.
and thinking that it'd be fun to make astrology videos, and it got too much for her, and she stopped as soon as it did. And then you have other people who will will push to a point, and then they might get, like, really canceled, and then they, like, walk off, and those people just aren't strong enough, I think. I
Yeah,
mean, realistically. Um, but it was probably never for them anyway.
yeah.
And I mean, I get this like way, and if I start thinking about pastors and stuff, like there's so many disgraced pastors. Like, why do they all hide? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I understand that these accusations from these pastors are huge. Okay, okay. Like, look at this. How many pastors of churches have been disgraced for sexually exploiting women or in some way, or having an affair with the nanny, or coming on to another woman in the church? Like, okay, that stuff. That stuff will get a modern day pastor canceled and removed from the church. Now, these are grown men having weird, creepy relationships with grown women and utilizing their power in a bad way, right? People come back from that. As long as they're not hurting a minor, trying to destroy somebody's like career because they didn't sleep with them, or like I mean, there's like a few lists of things, right? But you're a man, you're having an affair with your like, okay, Carl Lentz he got fired from Hillsong. He might be more of a creeper. I don't
I have
know.
his phone
Uh,
number.
You have Carl Lentz's phone number?
Because yeah, I do. Because
What the fuck?
I used to be a Hillsong person. I used to love
What?
Hillsong.
Oh my god.
I used to
Oh
love Hillsong, and
no way.
so I was a huge Hillsong fan. I used to follow them on their Instagram, and me and my best friend at the time, we're not best friends anymore though. We would just like talk about it and just like share posts to each other.
Mhm.
But I remember once, oh my God, I went to one service. Woo! Where some guy was basically just talking about homosexuality and it being bad. And usually Hillsong doesn't touch on those topics and stuff like that. But it was
Yeah,
one of those days when someone did
they did.
come and they were unapologetic about it, and the church was too, you know?
Uh, oh, yeah.
Like after the person gave the talk, they didn't like,
Yeah, because it would have been worse for them if they were apologetic because they would have been removed from like the coalition of churches. That's not what it's called, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a church, whatever. But
Yeah.
and I know people walked out and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I remember they posted on Instagram about it after.
Mm.
And then I commented, as the Aquarius I am, and I was, just saying, I was just calling them out for like that, blah blah blah. And then Carl Lentz DMs me. He's like, he's
He's
like,
like, hey, boy.
hey, little boy.
Go ahead.
He was like, hey, we need to like talk about this more, like just let like keep like just like take my number down, let's like keep talking about this stuff. And he gave me his
Oh,
number. But you know what the most embarrassing part was?
what?
Once I got the number and I texted him, um I screenshotted it and I sent it. I thought I sent it to my best friend, but I sent it to Carl Lenz, like
Oh, shit.
basically like leaking his number to my friend.
Oh. Oh my god. That's so but it's so then you didn't talk
And
to him anymore?
then I was
Or did you?
like, "Oh yeah, I'm not like, sharing your number. I forgot. I didn't even know that was in the screenshot," which was honest. And
Mhm.
he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, da da da." And then we just never talked after that.
That's funny. How long before, he was disgraced?
This happened in like pretty early actually. I had to be in like high school or college, maybe like
Oh,
early college. So that was like 2015, maybe 2013,
okay.
2015.
Yeah, because I have I think that Carl Lentz is like a douchebag, but I also feel like that's just there's some ego stuff there because he whatever. Um, I think that his wife should have divorced him, like, but that's for me not to judge that situation. I mean, I'm gonna judge it. So, like, honestly, like, your husband cheated on you. Tell him to go fuck himself, right? Like, I also Carl Lentz one time posted. I keep calling Carl Lentz, like that's what his full name is to me in his head. His name is Carl Lentz.
Hmm.
Um, it's one word. So he posted a happy birthday to his wife, and I remember reading it and being like, "What a fucking douchebag!" And actually, just because I'm just gonna do it because I have to. Um, it's still up, so I just want to read it because I think it's an important thing for anybody to understand why I think he's why I thought this was the biggest douchiest thing in the world. But it said, "Happy birthday, Laura Lentz. I love this photo of you because our two baby girls are a reflection of you. Dot dot. I hate when people dot dot, but like I'll get over it. Like three. Just put three down. Two means
Yeah,
something.
yeah, you're
The
right.
two always means something. Anyway, your grace, your class, your ease, in quotes, with which you attack this life impacts everybody who gets near you, from our church to our children, exclamation point. I have yet to meet a more selfless human being than you. I'm blessed to spend the next 41 years with you at least. I love you, girl.
At least.
Hashtag occupy my street. Okay. So one, don't fucking say happy birthday to your wife and hashtag occupy my street. Like, what does that have to do with you wanting to fuck your wife? That's nothing. You don't want to fuck your wife. It's very obvious. Which is rude. You should want to fuck your wife unless you're just asexual, but he's not because he fucked his nanny. And then I love this photo of you because our two baby girls are a reflection of you. So I love this photo of you because of the girls that you gave me is something. Then your grace, your class, and your ease with which you attack this life. Okay, so women are not allowed to be hurricanes, not if they're part of the church, right? You can't be chaotic. You can't speak your mind. You have to be graceful, classy, and when you attack life, it should be easy. It should be all sweet and butterflies and sunshines, and that's what he's praising within her. And then it impacts everybody who gets near you. How does it impact anybody when she's literally nothing? You're saying she's nothing. You're like, she just sits there. She's graceful, classy, and easy. And it impacts people because they're like, wow, what a nothing woman. That's what I hear for that. From our church to our children. our children, and our church. What about like you? Like, what about you? Anyway, I have yet to meet a more selfless human being than you. You know how many women and people, very feminine natured men and women, are just taught be more selfless, be more selfless. Like all you should be doing is giving of yourself to everybody else. When if a woman is not selfish, you know who will be selfish for her? Like who will be selfless for her is nobody. Women are consistently giving themselves out. So for a woman to be praised for her selflessness is bullshit. It's also evil. I'm blessed to spend the next 41 years with you at least. No, you're fucking the nanny. So it's like I read that and that was October 12th, 2019. And I remember, oh, she's a Libra. Also, she's got fake boobs, which is fine. I don't care. But like, there's very obvious.
Just saying.
What she's
I said, just
so
saying.
I'm just saying, I just noticed. I just stared. I was like, oh yeah, she's got double. Okay, so the thing is,
He didn't even talk about himself though.
no,
Like
like what does he love
he
about
didn't talk about like how she changed his life.
exactly how she inspires him, how she how the first time he ever saw her or like why he loves her. He loves traits about her that are about her reputation
And it's
and
very
how
public too.
yes. So it's like don't fucking like I know it's an Instagram post, but like those take extra time and care. And so he was being very careful not to mention any form of love for her. And then so when it came out that he cheated on her, I was like, yeah, no shit. You don't love your wife. If you loved her, you wouldn't have done that. And I could tell you didn't love her because of what you told the world about her. Those aren't loving traits. Like you don't need to get up there and be like, every time you say fuck, it makes me hard. Like, you don't have to say that, but say something like that, like something. Otherwise, like I said earlier, most people who are married are not married because of love. It's not even business. Sometimes, like, that's kind of businessy. It's like because you're supposed to. And part of me thinks, like, why is Carl Lentz not why is he not on his Instagram anymore? Right? Like you got fired from your church. There should have been like that's different. You did something that people do every day. But because you're a pastor and you're now proven to be inauthentic, cool. Get back out there and fix it.
Yeah.
Say just fucking fix it. Say yes, I didn't love my wife. That's true because no man who loves their wife fucks their nanny. It's just obvious. It's logical. Just say that shit. No, that's good. We got it. All right. Now say, I was a part of a church and the whole church situation that requires us to be inauthentic with you. I don't want to be that way anymore. I want to come to you in a place where I can preach to you and teach you about God and also teach you about being authentic. Okay, done deal. Then all of a sudden, you've created a new church that people would be more inclined to go to. Because it's not saying that Carl didn't have a gift. He was a douchebag. He wore his shirts all weirdly open. Like, I don't know. But like, that's
Yeah.
his thing. It's his prerogative. I'm not into it, but that's his thing. And I get like, I just don't get that. Like, I get when a pastor does something like hurts a little boy, or like has a history of just being abusive. But if you're a dick, like you're just a dick and you kind of swing your dick around, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be preaching at this church like this. But maybe you should change the entire church culture around it.
Yeah.
Instead of leaving and expecting that the church culture is going to remain pure when it's just not. And it's very irritating.
I think he
And
could probably start something around like ex-Christians.
mhm. And people who want to see like more authenticity because it's
Yeah.
like this
Which would be fucking life-changing. And I would be a part of that movement.
most people I think that people would. And I'm like, I don't want to say that I would follow Carl Lentz. I gave him the fucking idea right now. So if he does it, but I am saying that like people want a church, and churches do really great things for their communities. They do. They have volunteers who will give food to the homeless and shelter. And there are things that will happen that are just good, that when there isn't a church in a community, those things don't happen, right? Because churches come together to do those things on purpose because of their doctrine, right? Or like because that's what they feel they should be doing. And what I like kind of get from this is like you can't you could fix it pretty easily. Like it just switch the shit. Like you didn't need to get rid of me from my church. You needed to let me speak. You didn't need to silence me. The church just needed to let me speak and let me say my story and let me talk about how this happened and that boys need to stop trying to girls when they're drunk. All that was what needed to be happening, not this whole underage drinking thing that the church went on and then getting rid of me so that I didn't speak on it. And it was all for the reputation of the church and not the authenticity of the people. And I don't understand, like I get old people, but what person can't listen to like a queer gay man or woman talk about God? Like what person would just be like, "Oh, you're attracted to men. Therefore, I don't want to listen to your spiritual energy." Like that's not true because we can see it online that we do want to see
Yeah.
people talk like that, you know?
Yeah.
We want their authentic. I mean, they're canceling them every day too, but not for those reasons. It's like for other authenticity reasons. Like I don't know. So I'm getting
Or
into like
it's almost like made up inauthenticity.
Mhm.
It's
Yes, because it's like, no, no, I actually didn't mean to say that. All you had to do is ask me, and I would say that no, I didn't mean like the last thing I got canceled for was simplifying astrology in a funny way. And it didn't even go viral on TikTok. Well, it got like 100K on TikTok. It went viral on Twitter to cancel me.
yeah.
And I was like, um, it was I didn't even put makeup on. That's how little I cared about that video. I was trying to just make some content. I was like, hey, did you know this is funny? And then I figured it would start a Discord in the comments and people would learn about what makes a planet exalted, right? I was waiting for the comment section to understand, right? Instead, I was being told I was spreading misinformation, and I am the reason why people have to stand for astrology against people like me because of the misinformation that I choose to spread. And I was like, really? You guys didn't, no one got it? Like, it was a,
It's such like Pisces communication.
it
Do you
is.
have Aquarius? Where's Aquarius in your chart?
I have Jupiter in Aquarius. It's
Yeah.
the ruler of my midheaven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. So I
I was,
that's very Aquarian too.
yeah. I was just like, okay, I'm going to say something outrageous and then y'all going to learn. And actually, I got a lot of people who were like, I actually never understood like that stuff until that video because it was so simple. And I was like, oh, good. And I got a lot of messages like that, which I thought was really sweet. But the majority of the people that wanted to like crucify me for it, I'm like, I didn't even fuck my nanny. Like, you're acting like I went
I
and I fucked my
know.
nanny.
But
And then
Twitter,
I
I
said I
feel
would
like
never fuck
Twitter's
my nanny.
worse though. Twitter,
Yeah,
Twitter, like honestly, the energy I get from Twitter is so much worse than TikTok.
it is. And you know,
Yeah, but Instagram has a lighter energy.
yeah. Well, it's because of the face. I don't trust accounts that utilize words over their face. um, I get weird about that because I think that I understand that not everybody, like a lot of tarot readers, they'll just use their hands
Oh,
and you never
okay,
see
yeah.
their face.
Oh, I know. I might know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. I understand a little bit. Like there's like a broom closet thing that people don't want to come out of. Like they don't want their coworkers to find out who they
Mm,
are. But on Twitter, you're getting way more of that. And you're getting like literal troll accounts that
Yeah.
rack up 100,000 follows. You don't know their credentials. You don't know who the fuck they
Yeah,
are.
people on
Like
Twitter are
you
so mysterious. I'm like, who are
Uh-huh.
you?
Yeah, and I'm like, I understand that you might have, like, way more Twitter followers than me because you are pumping out, like, dumbass shit every day, like,
Yeah.
"Aries is gonna have a day," and you're like, "Cool, thank you,"
No
and then it
sh
goes, like, viral.
whatever. Like,
Yeah, but I'm like, people don't know who you are. They know who I am because my face is out there, and that means that every time I put out content, I'm responsible for it.
yeah.
When you put out content, no one's fucking responsible for it because you're
Yeah.
a Twitter astrologer, and you're safe, right?
Yeah.
You're safe to just cancel whoever the fuck you wanna cancel, but you don't have to have a personality, you don't have to be entertaining, you don't have to do shit.
Yeah. You just gotta post dumb stuff that will get reactions out of people.
Mhm.
That's not really helpful.
Yeah, it's not helpful at all. And actually, I just wanna commend you on, like, obviously, this part of the podcast was all for me talking my story, which I love, and, it's going on my channel, but, like, you seeing something that was wrong and trying to be proactive and fixing it and helping it and creating your content around creation and helping creators as opposed to destroying them, which is so much easier to do. And that is a big deal, especially like for you coming from your position of like watching people get canceled and then being canceled yourself and seeing that like, hey,
Yeah.
this does take a toll and like we should be able to keep producing content and creating and doing really good things for people and having a good time.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I do feel like you're entering into that 9 degree. Oh my god! And you have your flipped nodal return right now. Your
Yes.
nodal opposition. Why do I always
Yes.
keep calling it a flip nodal return like an idiot?
Yeah, I call it inverse nodal return.
I like that inverse nodal return. Is like it's a big deal because you're able to look at yourself from a different perspective right now. And that's wait, how old are you?
27. I'm
Okay.
starting my Saturn return now because it's in a
Oh
year.
yeah.
It's in next
Yeah, it's
March.
in a year. That's it. Because I was I started it when I was 27. I'm just trying to think of when the North Node was in Scorpio. And I can't remember. Because that was your last
The return.
that was your return. Oh, and that happened. That's your 27 as well. No, wait. You're 27, you're going through hold on one second. Yeah. Never mind. Nodal opposition. Sorry. That's the 27 club is the nodal opposition and the Saturn return together.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay,
when I
okay,
was
okay.
so I started my astrology YouTube around that. It's funny because I'm a lot older than a lot of other people when they start their astrology career, but since I was one of the like the first ones to do it, we were all older and there weren't anyone's like much younger than me. So I see that though like as a big thing because a lot of you guys are hitting your Saturn return well into your astrology careers. And I'm interested in that like heavily.
Yo,
um
my Saturn return chart has vibes. It has Lilith in the first house, which I can't stop looking at. It has Gemini midheaven with the moon directly conjunct the midheaven. So
mm,
interesting, which I like. I love that energy.
yeah.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
I feel like that means you're gonna be, in a changeable situation, like, going with the flow because the moon in the midheaven is very much like,
yeah.
if I feel like it, and I'm into that because that's how I live my life, you know?
I'm just gonna get even more go with the flow. Let's do it.
Yeah,
No, I think maybe I just kind of find my fluidity if in how I just come across as a leader.
yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be
Well,
one way or
what's your Saturn returns midheaven?
um. Wait, what'd you say? Sorry.
What's the midheaven of your Saturn return?
Oh,
Or
Gemini,
what sign is
Gemini.
Gemini. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that's Gemini's beautiful energy. Also, you're offering people a choice. I've been really on Gemini since the North Node went through Gemini, last year and the year before. And I've just noticed more and more how Gemini isn't like twins in that sense. It's offering a choice. It's very much like, red pill or
Yeah.
green pill. And it's like one twin takes you here, the other twin takes you here. And that's what Geminis are dealing with in their mind, or like wherever you have Gemini. And when your midheaven's in Gemini, that's what I get, because a lot of Virgo risings have a Gemini midheaven. And if you look at the ones who are very strong in that, like say Emma Watson, um, when she started getting into her activism, is like he for she. She was offering a choice. Like they always offer. They stand there and they offer, like, you can do this. I don't care if you don't, but you can. And then they offer, and like that's what I feel like your moon. Like I'm getting that. Like it's almost like with the moon there too. It's a little bit of a snake vibe, and like Lilith, it's like I'm offering you a choice,
Yeah.
and people are gonna be like, I want to follow you into that choice, and you're
Yeah.
like, all right, that's cool.
I'm here for it.
And yeah, I like that a lot. Um, yeah, because the Sagittarius midheaven, well, my natural midheaven, which is opposite, is it's not a choice. And it gets really annoying, and that's why more people like the Gemini midheaven over the Sagittarius midheaven. It's a more likable situation, and
Yeah.
because I'm always like, no, this is right. People are like, Alyssa, you can't possibly know that, and I'm like, I do though, and you'll see it one day that I'm right. But it's funny in my brain right now because we can like wrap this up because I know this is like 5 hours long, but when I was
No, I still have questions for you.
oh, me too. Oh shit. So I just feel like I'm taking your time. I'm just like feeling so bad now at this
Don't
point talking
feel bad.
about. Okay. Um when I started my YouTube channel 10 years ago, and everyone was like, Alyssa, you're an idiot. Like, this is so stupid. Like, this isn't gonna be anything. And I wanna like it is such a big deal for me now to be like, I told you I was right, but I had to wait for fucking 10 years for you to see it. But I knew I was right.
Yeah, that's how I feel right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
Oh, go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
go. No, you're going, go ahead. More
Um,
questions.
so like talking about like who you are now as an astrologer and just like the position that you're in, what kind of impact do you think that you've made on the world? Also, congrats on the 10-year anniversary
Oh,
on
thank you.
YouTube.
Well, that's a deep question, and like really honored to be able to be asked it. And also now tottering on like a line here of like how to respond. Um,
I mean, this is like what your perspective is, and you'll
yeah,
never know the impact you made, but
yeah. Okay. Oh, I never even talked about Tumblr because I want to give a shout out to Tumblr, but they came into my mind right now.
nice.
Um, Tumblr, because they are I don't know what sign Tumblr is, but I was on it a little bit, but I was really on it for dumb poetry shit because before I'm an astrologer, I'm a fucking dumbass poet. And I like write random streams of consciousness. And I did that on Tumblr. And so nobody followed my Tumblr for shit. It was my astrology YouTube. And all of a sudden I started blowing up on YouTube. And I didn't know why. And I never knew why until very recently. It was because of Tumblr,
Mm,
because they were so into astrology, they would link my videos.
yeah,
And so in 2015, Tumblr basically got control over my account in their own sense, and they blew it up.
yeah,
So a lot of people know me because of Tumblr, even though I wasn't on Tumblr.
yeah,
So in that sense, I was just thinking of like, even if I couldn't possibly know the scope of my impact, or if I find out later, I feel like that's always the case when you're a public figure, like
yeah,
you never really realize it. And then years go by and you're like, "Oh, that was Tumblr." I didn't know. I
yeah.
was like, Why am I blowing up?" Like it was just like, why did I had 20,000 subscribers, now I'm at 40,000. Like what happened? I was
Your videos are really
steadily
good right now.
Yeah, it's like it's not just one video, it's like they're all just steadily growing, like old videos and stuff. And yeah, so apparently it was Tumblr. But I think in my I'm just gonna go and say this is I didn't know the impact that I had at all. Um, even when I came back in 2019, I didn't know the impact I had. I was shocked and annoyed because I felt siphoned from. Um, it was more of like it was an ego thing because of all the shit I went through, right? And I felt like I wasn't getting the recognition that I deserved for fueling so many people's content. Like I felt like a content farm or something. And it was an ego thing. Like I can like look at that because I think that ego is important. You have to go through it. I wasn't not going to go through it. And I think that's what it takes to be authentic is like, don't pretend like that wasn't a fucking ego thing, Alyssa. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't hate myself for it
Mhm.
because it hurt so bad. Like it was just like, and my ego came out to protect me. Like that's why egos come out. They come out because you feel hurt. And I felt really hurt. And I felt hurt by this community that I know that I knew that I created it because I spent like 2 years on my Facebook page building into other creators, sharing other people's videos. People would be like, they would come to me with their YouTube channels and be like, Alyssa, can you share it? And I would, and they would grow in subscribers with me. And I was like very much like hands on with every single person in the community. And um, I I tried to comment to everybody. Like I was trying to always be like, I wanted to be their mom, like in that sense. And when I left and came back and I saw that I was people's mother who I didn't like birth, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like I was like, "Wait, what are you guys who are you guys?"
It's
Like,
the
"This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful" like, I don't know. How did I get here? That's
it's the
man, that's an
epitome
80s
of like a post-capitalist society.
song. Yeah.
It's
I
like, what
felt
did you guys do?
yeah, exactly. And I was like, and I also like I got very worried for my own content because if you copy my content and then share it, and someone copies your content and then shares it, and that it's a fucking game of telephone because my content came from a very observant emotional place that was not based on going to astrology school or anything like that. It was 4 years of my own observation and technique. And so I'm okay with the fact that people liked it and that they went for it. But when people started sharing it and then tell that game of telephone like freaked me the fuck out. I didn't like any of that because I'm like, what are you talking about? Unless they were very obviously utilizing their own brain. And some people were. But I didn't I was still like upset. So just to answer your question, because I'm going on off this tangent and James would be pissed at my throwing back to that about how I just add too much information. I It wasn't until last year where it was like I stopped running from everything. And I looked at my whole life and man, that flood, it was just like, um, and I was like, I know that um, ah, when astrology takes over the world for real, because I think that right now, like, have you seen those things where it's like, um, the first people get on it, like it's like the bell curve. Um, so few people start it and it starts to gain steam, but it doesn't get mainstream until it's up here. And then
And
there's
it
the people who catch
shoots.
into the trends later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't we're not here yet. We're not at its peak at all. I would say we're even like pretty far down here because there's still even though I'm immersed in it, there's still so many people who would say that astrology is either evil or stupid, right? Like they're going to go to those two things. And but I feel like when it reaches that point that people will like this is like such a weird thing to say. And I don't want to, it's not, and I can't, and this is why I think I wanted to bring up the ego thing, because I don't think that this is me having an ego, because my ego usually wants to put me down. But I think people will acknowledge that I started this with some other people. And I saw it. And I had this big dream too, and this is my big thing, that because of that, I didn't need to hold on to it so tightly, and that I could allow the younger generation to have it because um they had good intent with it. And I after like I had this dream, like I had a it was a very like it was a big dream with like a huge vision. It was like, let your kids take it over. Like, don't worry, you have something else you need to do now. You're a different, like, you're not a person who
Mm,
stays with these things as they move on. And that's when I got like a lot of the energy of like, you need to go help the church again. Like I really do feel that. Like I'm still into astrology, and I think the astrology is a big part of the church going forward.
okay.
But um I was like told, and I feel it, that people that I started something really important because I brought astrology to kids. And that's like it's a weird thing for me to say, but like because I brought astrology to kids and teenagers who really really needed it, like the way that I would have needed it, that I made a huge impact on the future, and I'll see it one day, but
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it. So that's my last, I guess, my long, I feel weird saying it, but I'm like, I feel it really strongly because I know that I did,
Yeah.
because nobody taught me how to do it. And then I had to do it. And there was no one before me that did it the way that I did it.
Yeah.
And afterwards, like I go on YouTube now and like people say fuck when they're doing tarot. And I'm like, I think I was the first one, guys. I don't know, but like I think I was. And I think because I did it and I got a lot of heat for it. But that's an oldest child thing too.
Watch.
Like,
It's gonna be the same situation for me. I
mhm.
already feel it. It already
It's like
happens.
it's it's when you there are some people who pioneer, and there are some people who take it to its a bigger situation, and then there are some people who pick up on it when it's going away. And I think a good pioneer realizes that they like to be pioneers. Like I've never been a pioneer because I wanted to be stable. If I wanted to be stable, like it's like the pioneers who moved out west.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to be stable, they would have lived in New York. Like
Yeah.
they moved out west not for home. They moved out for gold. And when they discovered the gold, do you think that they were cool, or do you think they wanted to go somewhere else? And I think it's important to know what kind of energy you are, because like that's me. I've always been that person who's like, "You need me, I can help you. I'll fix this. We'll move this forward, and then I'll go because I'm gonna be fucking bored if I stay." I just will be. I already know, especially if there's a bunch of me. Like not say, and this is so like I don't want anyone to think that I'm being rude, because I was super rude back in the day. I was very upset. I was like, there's so many me's running around talking like me, acting like me. Like I was like, I'm some shadiest, I'm the real shady. Like I would feel that way. Like, what is why can't you be you? But I realize now I'm like, do I want them to be them? Or do I have some solace the fact that they are me?
Yeah.
Like, and in weed growing, in marijuana, they have the mother plant that gives out the THC, and you want to get good clones of the mother to keep making the good weed. So, as a pioneer in any situation, if you want there to be clones of you to carry on your vision when you're fucking bored of it. And it's hard when you're doing it, but it's like, do you want to do something else?
And the thing
You
is,
would.
like, some people, and maybe this was you, where you were like, oh, like, oh my god, like, these people. But when I started hacking astrology and I posted, a particular TikTok, I saw someone, a mutual I had, make like a TikTok on the same thing. And what I did is I just took that and I just reposted it on my Hacking Astrology page. Not that because they stole content, but that they were talking about the same thing that I was talking about. Yeah, and they had the
Yeah.
same kind of like opinion, perspective, and it's like we should like even give those people like a platform as well and like support them. I don't know. I just thought that I
I
saw
like
my
that. No, it's good.
impact.
Yes. I think it's important. Um, Also, when I realized on TikTok, I would it was a big weird thing to me. I remember this girl, I won't say who it is, because I think she's nice. I don't know. I don't know her. Um, she she followed me and I followed her and I was like, "Oh, she's an astrologer. She's got a lot of followers, whatever." So I just followed her back when I saw she followed me and I was like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden one of her older videos popped up in my feed and I watched it and I started bawling my eyes out because it was about the moon sign in your mother and it was my video on YouTube
No.
verbatim. And I only knew it because the reason I fucking like people always acted like, "Oh, I just got up and spit shit out of my mouth." I fucking studied. I thought about this in my head. I don't have scripts when I talk. So if like I run things through my head, right? Which means that they are completely memorized forever, right? So when I like it's a hard problem to have because when you run across somebody video who is speaking your words directly, you immediately see it. Like immediately and you're like, "Uh-huh." And I remember I was holding my baby while talking about the moon sign and the mother because I was writing this and putting this video out when I had a breastfeeding baby on my lap. And then I saw this girl who was like early 20s, real cute, speaking my video out. And I was emotional and I cried and I was so mad and I like went to go look more like up her more and like see what she was doing. And I went to her Instagram and there wasn't a lot going on there. And then something like slapped me in the face and was like, "Alyssa, the girl looks up to you. She follows you. You changed her life. She has a platform because of you. And she's not acting like she doesn't. she's she literally like is still looking up to you. And you can be a bitch ass mom or you can be a nice one." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And I calmed down and it was like one of those weird moments because it's like it's weird how it hurts, but I'm like I get why it hurts and I would never tell anyone not to hurt about it. I would never tell anyone to be like, "Just get over it," because that's what people would always tell me. Like, "Oh, your ego's in the way." Because I'm like, sometimes it's not ego. Sometimes it is deep emotional rooted feelings. And you go back to that moment you made that video and you remember everything. And I'm like, I can't explain to you why I remember everything about that video. I can't explain to you the trauma that I went through to get to that video that someone can just now speak.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that when I made that video and all the videos that I've ever made on my channel, I spent so much time and love and care on them, and, like, that's on me, and the people that it touched, if they wanna have careers in astrology, they are absolutely allowed to, and I'm happy that they are, and that's something that's taken me a lot of growth to get to, but I'm super happy that they are because that means I'm a great leader, and a leader doesn't have to keep doing all the time. A leader oversees,
Yeah.
and I'm coming into a time in my life where I'm no longer doing. I am overseeing, and that's a different situation. And I can't believe it broke my ego so bad. Like, honestly, like it's weird. But I also don't think that, um, I would say for me, and maybe it's not necessarily true, and I could be wrong, but I think that feminine energy normally doesn't have that transition as much. Like, we go from normally feminine energy go like females, especially like super feminine women or whatever, go from mother to grandmother, right? Like that's their transition. And that's not a leader. It's it's something it's but it's similar. But it's like when you're a woman in a career situation, when do you become that leader? It's very rare. There's a lot more men that are in that, a lot more rich white men in that position than like women or anybody else,
Yeah.
minorities. It's like it's a harder place to be in because you're holding on to your little job that you curated, and then they're like, here's a promotion, and you're like, fuck, I don't want that promotion, I want to stay down here, and you have to let go of yourself and just move up.
Hmm. Yeah.
That it sucks.
uh,
I mean, it doesn't, it's good, see.
okay. So do you have any projects coming up that you'd like to plug, or just like, just like a certain, I don't know, idea of what you're going to be doing in the future?
um
I do
okay, I have
readings.
yeah, I don't, okay, my right now what I want to do is which is going to take some time, but I want to um I want to make in a convention or an expo for astrology and like these types of channels on like TikTok and YouTube and everything. Because one of the big things that I remember is that being around actual people, right?
Yeah.
And we all exist so far from it, and we're not really as included in like the VidCon. And I don't even think that even if like we are included in VidCon, it doesn't matter because we don't need to be among those people. And I've since I started astrology, because this is like a new modern astrology convention. I mean conferences. Excuse me, sorry. Conferences are like they don't really like us. People will always be like, Alyssa, why don't you speak at conferences? I'm like, because I'm not invited. Um, like they won't invite, like one woman actually told me she would never ask me to speak at a conference again because I had to turn her down because I was pregnant. I was pregnant and I said I would do it. Then I had my baby and it was 2 weeks later and she goes, so you're gonna speak? And I said, I'm so sorry, but I got another woman to speak. And she goes, no. And she's like, I don't take lightly to people who turn me down. And I was like, fuck you. I have a 2-week old baby. And I thought like, anyway, they're not nice. The old astrologers.
Yeah, I could.
And if they
Yeah.
want to be nice, they can prove me wrong. But they're fucking dicks, like all of them. And they don't deserve to be in their positions of leadership holding on to these conference titles and these schools and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And um they've never accepted me. And everyone was like, well, Alyssa, you should have like broke into it. And I was like, no, I was the most popular astrologer at one time. They should have been honored to ask me to speak with them, and they never did. And that's not even my ego talking at that point, because I was too busy to like actually hope that please like come have me speak at your conference. Anyway, so something that I've always noticed about that is like they they require a lot of like PR to get into conferences. Like you have to have a management team. There's a lot of these things that they do to get people there. Like you have to be published in some way or whatever. Um, but that's boring and no one cares about those people. Only pretentious people do care about pretentious people. So whenever I'm like up for a show, they always want to know what happens in my day-to-day life. And I'm like, this, right? Like I plug in my camera and I talk to it, and they're always so
They
bored.
want
They're
you
like,
to
wait,
be like going on like in-person dates to see your clients.
exactly. And I'm like, I don't. And someone was like, can you take pictures of you talking to your clients? And I was like, talking to a computer? Um, you don't want that picture. And like I've had to tell people multiple times, and like they just, it's so strange. So I feel as though we're kind of like in a way, as the astrology community has been waiting for a long time to kind of be saved by the media in some way, or like these big companies. But right now our next step is already being consciously planned by us, right?
You know I've
You
gotten recognized in public, right?
you have how many a lot of times?
2 times, 2 times. Once, but I'm always alone because I'm a fucking loner. And then once I was so zoned out, I was in the park, I had my headphones on, I was in my phone walking,
Oh,
and then
shit.
someone, like, taps me, and she's like, "I follow you, I, like, have favorited, like, a bunch of your videos."
That's so
But I
beautiful,
didn't know
though.
how to react, so I was, like, walking away as I
Oh,
was saying it, like, I didn't stop
yeah,
to talk to her.
it feels awkward.
And
The
then, like, the second time, I was just, like, walking in the city, and these 2 girls were drunk, and she was like, "Are you that astrologer?" And I was
there's
like,
a
"Yeah," and I just, like, ran away.
That's so funny though, because it is weird like the first few times you're because you're like, wait, what? I remember I lived in Buda, Texas, which is the city south of Austin, Texas. And so I go to this Thai place like once a month we would get Thai from this Thai place. And I went in to pick it up. And my last name was Trahan at the time, but it was Sharp on YouTube. It was 2015. And the girl was like, she looked at my receipt and she looked at me and she's like, "Are you Alyssa Sharpe?" I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "I watch all your videos. I didn't know you lived in Buda." And I was like, of all the place, like the small town that I like happened to live in with the Thai, like the girl in the Thai place. And the thing was the Thai place, it was a real Thai place run by people from Thailand, and she was a white girl at the thing. And I was just like, I get Thai from here all the time. And I took a picture with her, and that was the very first time I was ever recognized, or actually, it's the second time. The first time someone came to do a screen test from tarot.com, they wanted me to be their spokesperson back in 2013. And I was pregnant, and we went to a park to record some stuff, and there were a lot of cameras on me. And this girl asked one of the cameramen and was like, "Is that Alyssa Sharpe?" And I was like, after a year, this random girl, and it's always so random like that. Or like one time I was in LA and I went to go get my hair done. And the lady goes, "You look really familiar." And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" She goes, "Are you Alyssa Sharpe?" And I was like, "Yes." And she goes, "How's Apollo?" And I was like, "So I look familiar?" My fucking dog's name.
I'm
And then
crying.
she sat and did my hair and made me talk to her about astrology. And I was like, normally when I get my hair done, I want to like go to sleep.
Yeah, like, I just don't wanna talk to like, also, hair gives me like, when people cut my hair, at least, it gives me ASMR.
Yes, me too. And I want to sit there and just
Maybe it's a
enjoy the
Taurus moon
ASMR.
thing.
I
I
think
think
so.
ASMR is a Taurus moon thing, by the way.
I don't get ASMR from actual ASMR. I get ASMR from weird things.
Yeah.
And like I had a teacher in high school, which I didn't know what it was. Her name was Mrs. Parrish, which Parrish, that's an ASMR name, right? Parrish. Um, when Mrs. Parrish talked, I would like literally just start like sitting there and be like, "What is wrong with me?" And I would just feel like the tingles in my brain.
You wanna
And
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought I was like turned on by her voice.
You know what my moment was? Going to a clothing store with, my parents, my mom, and then the cashier would have bangles. You remember when bangles was super
Uh-huh.
thing? And just the sound of her bangles as she typed on the register and opened and
Oh my god,
closed
yes. And you're
it,
just like,
and
oh, I can like hear, I can feel it.
like take things
Oh.
off the hangers, and then also, like, you know how they have to rub the cloves on the thing to get up, and then,
Mhm.
like, that it was just like a whole thing, and that gave me ASMR. It was just like,
Yeah.
it was like pure femininity to me,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know.
When
It definitely feminine, but, like, some
yeah.
sort of way.
When women have long nails, and this is something I always get because I can't, I fucking hate long nails, and I like cannot have them, and every time I have them I feel like my fingers can't breathe, so whatever. So the thing, but when they have them and then they start swiping their phone, but like
Oh,
without
yeah.
using their nails, but they just swipe with their fingers different.
Yeah.
I really like, I get into it. I'm like, "Huh?"
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's so ASMR because it is. It's just like ASMR because it's not, it's like, what is ASMR is like that place between asleep and awake, between arousal and non-arousal. It's like in the middle and you're just like,
Yeah.
"Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me watch you tap your screen
Like,
and
this is pleasant.
yeah, like, what is going this is amazing. How did they do this?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for coming on, I guess, this first part of the podcast. And
Yes.
I really enjoyed getting to know you. And I feel like I have a very detailed picture of who you are now. And I'm sure everybody else who's watching this does. But yeah, it was just really awesome getting to know you. And part two will be on my channel.
Yes, and I'm going to your name will be linked in the title of it. You know, where you can just click it
Oh,
in the
nice.
title because they do that on YouTube now. Have you seen that?
No, I
It's cool.
haven't.
Yeah, you just do in like an at in the title with their name, and then you just click their name and it goes straight to their channel.
Perfect, perfect. So we could
I
find
love it.
links there. But yeah, part two will just be about, yeah, toxic astrology, just talking about that and, understanding your super meta approach in terms of astrology and, and just chatting about that and what that means. And yeah,
Yeah, no, that'll be so fun. I can't wait to talk to you about that, and everybody should go to that because that will actually be the most interesting thing for astrology lovers to hear. So that'll be over on your
yeah,
channel,
that's like
and
astrology content.
yes, and this is me content, and I really greatly appreciate it and love that we got to talk about myself.
Yeah, I love it too.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And like Alyssa said, if you're not following me, you can follow me at Watery Aquarius on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.
Mhm.
And Hacking Astrology, which is this podcast, at Hacking Astrology. And yeah, we'll see you in part two.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.